It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
Yeah. Joe Peter here on Declare Your Independence. With me, Ernest Hancock, for the Trump Report with Dr. Frank Tamburri from the Sonoran Desert. Yep, took high school Spanish. This is going to be, maybe a shorter version, which we always say that, and then it doesn't, because never. But the news is so predictable, but it's indicative of what's coming. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of focus on, the economy and, this Fed repo thing, this overnight lending banks we'll get into a little bit of detail, try to understand that. Because the incentives for doing it aren't there. I don't even know if there's any reserve that the banks need to hold anymore. So why are they overnight lending, paying like $1 million, which is chump change, they got gazillions. But $1 million, let's say, costs like about $1,000 a day for the Fed to take as collateral and give them cash. Then the next day they buy it back and $1 million and $1,000. Why? Now before it was because they had to have a certain amount of cash on hand in case of another bank run, and which we have that site. It's anotherbankrun.com or something I got. Snizen and I did. We were doing a show, and I go, I'm holding on to that one because it's going to be, be like a fun run. You go to ATMs, taking your money out, and you show, and you get raffle ticket. That was kind of the plan, and make it a run. You're running the ATMs, a bank run, and to highlight the bank run that be a coming. Well, we may have fun with that, another time, but, it's in the back of my mind that this is coming. So what's a bank run going to look like? What if you have the banks going, man, it's teetering, it's on the edge, everything's on the edge. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to take my money, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lend it to the Federal Reserve, and they're going to give me that $1 million. I can't buy it back. You keep it, okay? You got the collateral. I just get the $1 million. Well, imagine that's $1 billion, $100 billion, $1 trillion. Overnight lending, the banks all dump all of their treasuries onto the Fed and then go, I got my money. You keep it. It's like a dollar for dollar, trade to crap. What happens if the treasury go to crap? Then the Fed's got a bunch of crap. Well, the banks got their money and we're all screwed. Thanks for playing. That's how it's setting up. And it's so obvious that I don't know why that's not a thing. And I'm going, why does this even exist? Well, for the banks to meet their, it used to be 20% reserve, then 10%, then none percent or whatever. Even Canada doesn't even have a percent. I don't even know if the U.S. does anymore. I remember us talking with John Snizen about this year or two ago. And what they were doing is you're supposed to pay it the next day. It's overnight lending, overnight, just overnight, a little bit, just overnight. Well, 3 weeks, a month, 2, forever. It's just a mechanism by which they're going to rip us off. You know why? I know why. Because they can, and this is one of the ways they can. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say about that. Unless Frank's got some inside on that. I'm doing a little bit of research on it and kind of going, this seems like that's exactly what this is. This is like, and we're dumping it. And it's the feds and the peoples and, peace on y'all. And we got the money out of it and sucks to be you. And I'm damn. So this interest rate, the banks want it low so that they can borrow it. But then they got to pay it back anyway. Why would they do that? Why are they overnight, just back and forth, a few days, letting, show liquidity and what do they care? I'm thinking they're building this up bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger credit balance, or the credit they have on their credit card, and they're doing this overnight thing just to keep the flow of money option open, because one day they're not going to pay it back, which is exactly what happened during COVID. Well, we're going to do a stimulus of kind of almost sort of we'll forgive of something. This is what I'm seeing happening in light of all the other crap that's got us distracted. So Frank might have some of the other crap distraction for us. What you got, Frank?
Well, I figured, before to get into some of the other topics we talked before the show. By the way, we're getting about, I guess we're close to the 3 weeks since the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So the Ernie Hancock 3-week rule will definitely.
Yeah, how's that FBI narrative holding up?
Yeah, no, exactly. 3 weeks. So we'll get to that, audience. But since Ernie started off, repo and the economy, I've spent, I don't know about you guys, but, since I promised my own family, like after the election, I'm refocusing, kind of like Ernie is as well, on the domestic issues, on family, on finance, on just getting ready. I mean, I put so much aside, on this culture war and the fight and doing the Trump report, which I still enjoy doing, arguing with Ernie. It was not, granted, I was focused more, helping Trump get over the finish line than Ernie did. Although, I personally, I think privately, Ernie was rooting along the sidelines. So it's all right. We're all on the same team. We're all the same kind of philosophy.
My only preference was not Hillary, not
No, I get it.
Harris.
This election.
I mean, not that it mattered, but
Yeah, I'm not. I hate to even sound like the old Sean Hannity. I'm going to vomit, but this election is the most important. And I've never said that before. I don't know if I'll say that again in the future, to be honest. But I meant it on that one. The only time in my life that I gagged sounding like Sean Hannity, I did. I think that election was an existential election. It dealt with much beyond just kicking the economy down another election cycle and this and that. Anyway, not to get into the fundamentals, the glue that holds the so-called Trump or tyranny report together here. But no, anyway, with all that out of the way, the economy though is where I knew the next phase was going to be. I mean, it's been falling apart anyway. It's on popsicle sticks and mass tape at this point. But so Trump's in. I'll let Trump be Trump, do whatever. We will praise him when he does good things, tear him apart when he's not. And personally, I think he's doing he's doing a great job domestically, at least as far as some of the culture war issues and the border, the ICE. It's funny. It's interesting. The Tim Pool show, which I don't even watch that much, hardly at all, it came up on. It's been flagged the last couple of days. Why? Because Tim Pool is right here in Arizona. He's broadcasting from Turning Point. It turned out he did not want to take a chance of being assassinated himself, flying in here for the memorial, and he was really upset about that. Just talking about how the left, in essence, has been winning for the fact that so many podcasters were truly afraid of bringing their posse here to Arizona for the memorial, that they were given private tickets for the show, I guess. So anyway, so he wound up coming here anyway after the fact. And they're broadcasting. Ernie, you've been there. You've seen how they have their things set up. So Tim's there now, and Luke was on the show just the other day. So he came back into town, I guess, to hang out. But no, it's interesting just to see for him. He's been interviewing a lot of border agents now that he's here in Arizona. So he's been tackling the whole border thing for quite in detail, and hearing that there's some of these border guys are sharing stories that Tim just couldn't believe, and he said that, why don't you come on the show and talk about it? And these border agents, even under this administration, but an Arizona Democrat left-wing governor, They're still scared as hell to even come on the show and talk about some of these stories. So we'll see what happens there. But anyway, so I think Trump's doing a great job on some of those fronts. But the fundamental, the mortal flaw of trust has been broken. And, the Epstein thing was a big deal. And then of course, with the whole Israel deal and taking a knee and it's basically been called Israel's cuck, essentially, is what he's looking like. And, I'm sure he loves that. So that's getting his attention. But we'll see how all that plays out. And that gets into the Charlie Kirk thing we'll get to. But I'm not trying to jump around too much, but that's the foundational. But I've moved on. But overall, I mean, that's in the background. I'm just taking all of my efforts on, just batting down the hatchets, mustering things up, and the financial markets. So as far as with the financial, since that's what you opened the show with, I often say that when grandma starts to, or even worse, when the mad money guy starts talking about buying gold, then the gig is up. And I'm still flabbergasted how resilient this fake economy is. The whole Genius Act, extending this fiat money a bit further. I want to ask you about that, actually. I know what it is, but I'm curious.
Good, you can explain it to me.
I'm not sure if it's even going to work. To explain it, I'll try to explain the best I can. And some of you guys are probably new to this. Some of you are going to be thinking I'm messing it up. But let's try to explain it. So the Genius Act, in essence, it's a loaded deal, but the little secret Trojan horse is that, from my understanding, is that they're able to create the stable coins. Now, I know the stable coin I always knew of was Tether. I always knew about Tether. But, essentially, from my understanding, is that companies can all make their own version of a coin. Like Amazon can do theirs. Facebook, I think, did theirs, which kind of started the ball rolling on this whole concept.
A stable coin it always is worth $1. So right. It's $1. Well, how do you know? We got it, we'll give you $1 in cash for everyone that you give to us. Okay, well, where are you getting that money? Yeah, we got it right here next to our pinky swear. So it's a pinky swear stable coin. Right. And then, based on what? Well, then they set the criteria. They change the criteria. They change the interest on the criteria. The amount of interest in the, whatever it is. Who's got guaranteed purchases, back it up, what collateral kind of pinky swear. It's all pinky swear. And when the tsunami comes, pinky swears are going to go away. Just say it.
Well, first off, a stable coin is pegged not necessarily to $1. It can be pegged to anything. But in this scenario, that's pretty much what they're all being used for in this example. So technically, it could be pegged to anything. But we're going to peg it to the $1, and that's what Amazon, Facebook, and everyone's doing. They're making their own stable coins. And Facebook, apparently, I didn't realize. I remember hearing about it. They're going to make their own money, and we covered it on the show years ago. But that really got the attention of the government about this. As I guess whoever's really pulling the strings of trying to kick this ultimate can down just a little bit longer and screw over the world 2.0, or we could say 3.0, and some of you got a few more. The first time we screwed over at least the world as far as our economy is when we promised that our dollars are backed by gold, and everyone bought our debt, and then, Nixon goes, you know what? It's like it was kind of like Lucy with Charlie Brown. Oops, sorry. We meant it, but no. We have a nice piece of paper. We put a lot of work with the fibers in the paper. You'd enjoy that. So we did that. Screwed over the world. I'm still shocked that the world didn't, riot on us more than that. I never really heard much blowback that our country did. In some ways we did. That's when the recession happened in the 70s. And then we get this brilliant genius who also was, I can't believe we have to keep talking about this, is a Zionist, which was Henry Kissinger. I completely forgot about his background with this. And he was the one that was tasked to go over, and it was his genius idea, and it was a genius idea. It was, you could call it evil, you could call it destroying our dollar, but it was a brilliant overture and move, which was going to King Saud of the House Saud in Saudi Arabia, and he basically created the beginning of the petrodollar to back it by forcing the world to buy oil with U.S. dollars. So that was the blowback was what the world did to us, and then we turned around and counter moved with that genius move from Kissinger to just kick the can down another, 50 years or 55 years or whatever it's been. So now we have the 2.0 or 3.0, I guess, if some people might put the Fudge Reserve in there from earlier. But anyway, now the Genius Act apparently is another exceptionally profound change that is not getting anywhere the attention in which it should. It's just like a little backdoor Trojan horse deal. So so apparently the Genius Act now combines, it basically is saying, all right, we're allowing stable coins, which already are backed in dollars, which of course most of us don't even want, but it's backed in dollars. But now you can buy treasuries with it, which is very useful right now since the rest of the world does not want our treasuries. That's the time, the end game, which we covered on the show when China stopped buying our debt, literally when the month that COVID was coming here. It was like December 2019, I think it was when they decided to stop buying it. I think it was around there. And then the next month is when the government stopped reporting was it the M1 or the M2 money supply? I forget which one it was, but the one where we're, how much debt we're basically, buying. And suddenly they just, after 50 years of reporting, the government says, we're not going to show how much that we're buying up. So they got rid of reporting it. China stops buying the debt as if that's not a coincidence. And so now we have that problem. So who's going to buy our debt? Well, now after 4 or 5 years of struggling around, doesn't this sound familiar, guys, a little bit? It's like we get off the dollar, then we get blowback, and then the government comes out with a strategy, which was the petrodollar. Well, the same thing is happening here. China's like, no, we're not buying it anymore. You start getting all of these dollars being pushed back onto the shores of America. Hey, Ernie.
Wait.
We got a rainstorm there?
No, I'm on 2 keyboards and I keep pushing the wrong keyboard.
Yeah, I thought you were like, it was like storm hit you. All right, so anyway, so all of a sudden the dollars all start washing back or being pulled back to our shores. All the dollars are out into the international community, and then when nobody's buying them, they start finding their way back home. So not only are we printing them, but these dollars are also coming back home at the same time. So inflation starts to go high, and no one's buying the debt, except our own Fed, which then, of course, my daughter gets to pay for eventually, and all of us. So they come up with this Genius Act that says, you know what? Here's a way that we can start to spread the debt around. We're going to allow stable coins to also purchase treasuries. Now, apparently, some of these stable coins were already being used indirectly, or I don't know if it's direct or indirect, but they were involved with buying treasuries anyway. Like, some of them are already playing with this. I forget which one. It may have been Tether. So some people were doing this anyway, but they made this now official where all of these stable coins that are issued by private companies can now get treasuries. And so I'm sure they're going to get some benefits, some tax benefits, whatever, in order to do that. But of course, come the controls with it. So this is a way where companies now who issue these stable coins and the people who buy them, and that's the ultimate question I'm going to have for you, right? The obvious, which is I've been reading and watching all of this stuff of the stable coins and to transfer the debt to it. And everyone seems all worried about it. It's the new scheme. And heck, even Russia was calling us out on it at the UN. I think it was last week. And I still don't have an answer. Who the hell's buying these things, especially when it's so obvious what's happening? But I might just be overthinking it. But anyway, these coins, people will buy them, and then they can, the debt can be funneled into these stable coins. And by issuing these stable coins too, you're almost doubling the money supply to like it's like a whole other bank. You're creating more money out of nothing to then put the debt into. And then these stable coins, because they're not issued by our government, they're companies, and these companies are international, like Amazon, everything else, Facebook, then these coins can be bought by everyone in the world, which is a way to take all of our debt, stick it into these digitized tokens, and export the debt to the rest of the world. And that is the ultimate scheme of what this is doing. So even though we still have a lion's share of the debt, we're exporting. It's one more way to screw over the world and say, hey, we've been living in luxury, just putting this stuff up. We're beyond our measuring stick. We're breaking our borders and our britches. And so, you know what? Instead of still reining in our spending, we're going to tell everyone Mad Money on the CNBC that crypto is the future. Crypto. Let's not talk about gold or anything. Crypto, and now stable coins and meme coins and whatever. And we're going to find a way to export the debt. So, for some of you out there, I'm sure there's some things I hacked in that general explanation. That's the best I can kind of muster for you guys of what the overall scheme of this Genius Act is. And I mean, every podcaster on metals, on precious metal mining, on crypto, I mean, everyone has the same take on it. Now, where people disagree, of course, is what's the best way to hedge against this problem, because that just means we're going to just kick this can down even longer. And, so the crypto guys say, buy more Bitcoin. Other guys say altcoins. The gold guys, buy more mining stocks. So everyone's got their own solution. Bottom line is get outside the dollar, of course. That's what they're all saying, which, not financial advice, but I would agree with that. But that's I understand with the Genius Act. So this is it's a big deal. And then, of course, you have Trump's kids that are all into this. I mean, they're pushing for Bitcoin, which I know is not technically stablecoin. I might be wrong. I think one of them might be involved in something of some form of a stablecoin. I'm not sure about that. But the fact that his kids are all into the crypto. Now, they're also pro-gold, which is interesting. I mean, I think both of them are definitely better than having dollars. But just the fact that we're pushing for crypto, we're trying to, his kids are with Bitcoin. So, I mean, but the rest of the world isn't. And I'm not going to keep rambling about it, but I find that all I have to look at is the central banks of the rest of the world. What are they buying? What are they doing?
Gold.
If America's all by ourselves saying, it's all crypto, we're going to digitize this and you guys all get to buy it. I'm sitting back just wondering at what point does America realize, it reminds me of the high school football guy, like Mr. Cool Guy in football. And he got all the girls, and he thought he was all tough, and he won the little trophy in high school. And then he comes back to the reunion, and he's all pouchy, and and guys like not looking as he was when he was 18. He comes back, and he still thinks he's 18, and all the girls became women, and they all grew on, and they just see him for what he is. But he's still living a memory. And I just feel more and more between our foreign policy and how we're looking at this, this scheme of the world's just going to buy all these digital tokens and buy. I still can't wrap my head around who's going to buy it, but it sounds like somehow they're going to, we're entrenching these stable coins somehow, because I don't know I don't know who's buying Facebook tokens. I don't know who's buying Amazon tokens. I mean, I don't know anybody. I mean, I know some people bought some Disney tokens that go down to, to spending around. That's like their currency in Disney World. But aside from that, I really don't know. I know that's the plan, but to jump and do that now when everyone will learn that you're buying debt. The important thing, I almost forgot to say, when you buy a T-bill, normally, when the country buys our T-bill, they get interest on it, right? Well, when you get this, I mean, whatever it is, 2%, 5%, whatever it is, you get interest on holding our debt. Well, when this debt now gets exported into stable coins, there's no interest. So there's no yield. You don't gain anything. So they're exporting the debt, and you're not even getting paid to do it. So, again, I can't wrap my head. It's something I'm missing, guys, and I'm sorry. Some of you guys type in or just shout out to us, or please email us. Who do you think is buying it and why? Because I still don't understand it. But that's the scheme. And lastly is Russia. I did say this last week, but I didn't put in context of the stablecoin discussion, as best as I can explain. But the finance minister or someone there from Russia was, at a major economic meeting. Is that how it was? Thank you. And he basically, because last week, I know I brought it up, but I didn't have you didn't hear about it yet. So yeah, Cerny has it. And he came out and he said, look, we're calling out America's new financial scheme, that you're going to be exporting all this debt and we know it's not going to work. We're not going to fall for it. And, they're calling it out.
Yeah, we just closed the gold window. We never do that. That'd be wrong.
So what do you know about what I was chatting about? I know you have your own, periphery of some of that information. Does it kind of make sense with what you're hearing? Is there anything else you can add to that Genius Act?
If they can. I mean, it's so simple. They make it so they can. What can they do? Oh. All right. It's going to take me a minute. I'll go to, I could pull this up on the screen, but I got it on my laptop. That's what I was looking at here. I need to understand how this overnight window repo thing works. Well, what happened, I go, why did they even, have this? What was the purpose of this? The repurchase agreement, repo, market originated in 1917 in the U.S. as a way for the Federal Reserve to lend to banks. They would take their assets, which now is like, treasuries and whatever, and it was a way for them to short-term secure lending among financial institutions that need cash against their securities collateral. Well, they had their collateral, they put it in, we need more money. Well, one of the original reasons was they had to have so much cash on hand as a reserve so that when people went to the bank, It's a Wonderful Life, with Jimmy Stewart, they're going in, everybody want their money, that they had cash to give it to them. That's a run on the bank. So that was one thing everybody's all worried about. Well, what happens if? Well, that's why we got the Federal Reserve, to make sure that there is enough money. We got the Federal Reserve, and we'll help with the Federal Reserve. Then they put in other stuff like maximum employment and some other. It's just stupid excuses to whatever the hell that they give an excuse to change interest rates. Well, it was all in the little bleed, like Patrick Byrne always goes on, the pig's breakfast. It's just, if you can create a complicated system and mandate that they have to meet certain things at different times and buy, then you just got the flow of money going back and forth. And on that vibration, people make money. They make commissions. They get percentages. They get points. They get. So it was just, how can we make money with the system? This is why when Goldman Sachs goes and the VP of, and after settlement of a bunch of lawsuits against the bank by Patrick Byrne, they called him the Paris, and all right, what role do we have in this crypto thing? Well, you don't have one. It's math. It settles itself. They don't, paperwork. What paperwork? We got the blockchain, and they're going, damn it, man, we got to get in on this thing. We need some Goldman Sachs.gov coin, which I knew was coming, was going to, because it had to. And then later, when The Economist has, a magazine cover comes up with GovCoin, and they go, hey, Ernie, they took your, man, that was always the idea. Just saying. So then you go, all right, well, what's Russia's role in this? How do they, do this? How does it operate? One of the things to keep in mind with this is that if a person files for bankruptcy, they become the debtor and are subject to an automatic stay. This is what the stay means. This injunction immediately and automatically stops most collection actions against the debtor and their property from creditors, including investors. So when I got all these treasuries, I got trillion dollars in treasuries. I give it to the Federal Reserve, and they go, all right, well, tomorrow you got to pay back a $1 trillion plus a million, or whatever it is. On $1 million, it's only $900 and something dollars. So it's like $1,000 to borrow $1 million for 24 hours. Well, it used to be 24, sometimes 48 hours, kind of, depending on where you were, time zone, something. And then it's 3 weeks, then a couple of months during COVID. And it wasn't until the early 2000s that the Fed could even do it. The repo market was kind of out there, and different financial institutions, would lend and borrow and debt and sell and interest and charge and whatever, but not the Fed. Ooh, here comes the Fed. Here comes the Fed. Here comes the Fed. And they start doing it. Well, that's easy money. And we just print it, into existence. We push a button here and bing, there it is. Okay? Electronic printing. So Then they start making a bunch of, here comes COVID. It's 21, 23 around there. They start going, well, you know, you can give it to us and kind of, you know, we need liquidity. We need to have so that we can, you know, Trump can write some checks with his name on it and give some, you know, what do they call it, stimulus checks to everybody for everything, for whatever. Where does that come from? Well, the banks, we want to be able to inject, push on the string, you know, money into the system and have liquidity. And so they would just, we'll take your, and they did it one for one. After the crash in, you know, 08, 9 there, they did the TARP and everything. The banks, they go, you know, of course, Goldman Sachs, you know, in all the positions of power. And they go, your brains or your signature is going to be on this here document. You're going to have to participate in and be part of. Wells Fargo goes, nah, we're good. We don't want, no, the hell, you don't get to say no, boy. You know? So what they were doing is they were flooding money into it, and they didn't have to come back. But on the promise, well, you're going to, you know, lend this out, right? You're going to, like, you know, make it, you know, over here and do this kind of stuff, right? Well, they're keeping it and hoarding it, making money on other collateral, just crap. It's never what they say. So I can't remember. I did a deep dive. I go, okay, they're just ripping us off. I get it. So when they do this, and you have, and you're just keeping the lines open, they're creating a conduit, the plumbing for this. When it happens, it's going to be a tsunami. It's going to be like we saw in 08 when they go, the entire system is going down. We got to do this now or the whole thing will implode. It'll be Lehman Brothers times a gazillion. It'll be, oh my God, it'll be. You know, pension funds will go out, retirement, 401ks. You know, the sky will fall, raining, cats and dogs living together. I mean, it's going to be a thing. So then they do the stimulus. They do, you know, the bailout thing. They create this whole system by which they can just flood in money. Then they go, all right, well, we need to be able to use all this collateral that we have in treasuries and whatever, and a lot of them were mortgage-backed securities. This the housing market crap was going on, the big short and all that. So what did the Fed do? What did the government do? What did the Treasury do? They go, you know what? We're going to give you one-to-one value on this thing that was $1 yesterday and is now 20 cents. You know, it's like the Great Depression. It's 1929. No, pay no attention to that. You give it to us, and we're going to give you what you paid for it, or dollar for dollar value of whatever. They go, and here you go. We'll hold on to it. Till when? Who wants to get that? It's not worth any, you know, it's a derivative, derived from a value of derivative. And you go, they go, we'll just indefinitely, and write it off our books in, like, oh, say 30 years or something like that. There was an economist out of Tucson that she, God, what university? She might have been, you know, Safford or Thatcher or some college. She wrote a book on this, and that was the question I kept asking everybody. I have all these great minds come on, tell me how it works. So I go, look, well, they gave them dollar for dollar on that one. Why? Two, they just flooded it with a bunch of money in there that they sat on and did whatever, and or pinky swear is supposed to lend it out and create the stimulus of whatever, and they didn't, and, you know, long story. But I go, what's the Fed going to do with it? It's sitting there, they're selling it to somebody at a loss. Yeah, they'll just keep it till they write it off. It's just, we just put it over here money. That's what the Russian guys are thinking is going to happen with stablecoin. They're going to go, all this money out there, we need some cash, we need some dollars. Give us some dollars. What can we do to this dollar thing? You know, well, we'll take this stable coin, this security, this asset, this whatever the hell it is, that we, you know, we'll set it over here, and we'll borrow on it. Yeah, that's the ticket. You can have it, and they keep doing that every night. And when it takes a dump, the dollar goes, whatever that they have in securities and stable coins and whatever, they'll put it into that. That's why you can only use treasuries to buy stable coins. And you put it all in there, and where's it at? Well, did I get cash for it? 1 for 1. Absolutely. It went from $1 down to nothing. Well, here's your dollar, and we'll take the hit, the Federal Reserve saving the banking system again. This has already been done. This is already, and this is, I'm sure I'm bastardizing it up, and there's economy guys out there going, "You idiot, you're doing it." We just had Peter Schiff on. He's going, "Yeah, moron, Ernie." That's not how it
actually, those audience members are probably screaming at me first.
So my whole point on this is they're creating a mechanism, plumbing, for when it goes, and they're already doing it. Well, they did it last night. They did it the night before. Now we gave them a couple of days this one time, maybe a month, 3, whatever. But, we have the pipeline for them to dump all of this stuff onto the Federal Reserve balance sheet, and then them just give them cash, which they just push a button, print it, whatever. But which will be massive inflation, but not to the guys that get it first. Right. They get it at a much higher value than it goes out to everybody else. So then when they pay off the debt, it's with inflated money where they had something else go up, which might be gold, okay? So this is just, and that's my just from space looking at it kind of, Ernie, what the hell do I know?
Let me just add something else to it, which I forgot to mention too, is that you're talking about laying the pipe, which is a great metaphor in this case, is that it's also for the CBDC. CBD, central bank digital currency.
No, that's the mechanism by which they're going to be doing it.
No, exactly.
Thing.
No,
Push
exactly.
a button, done, boom.
Remember, Trump ran and he promised that he's not doing a central bank currency, right? A digital currency. He's not going to do. He ran on that, but then he signs the Genius Act, which is a workaround. Because what's going on is that the treasuries, like wherever the treasuries go, would be the official money, right? Because they're holding the U.S. debt. So, but they're offloading it onto private companies. So, but there's always going to be a control over it. So the government can still
control. You got to do what they want you to do.
Right. To the Facebook, the Facebook token. But since they're holding treasuries and I guess there's a quid pro quo. So now the government has access to who has it and what you're spending it on, and they can turn you off. Obviously, the whole point of this, right? So they have access everything that we don't want in a central bank digital currency. They're doing through a Trojan horse, through these tokens, through these, these private companies, and then Trump can say, well, it's not central bank, it's not that, it's Amazon coin, it's completely private companies. And these private companies don't have all the border restrictions that America does, when treaties and things deal with other countries. I mean, Amazon doesn't care. If you like Amazon, you can get an Amazon token.
The world's just corporations like Rollerball or Network.
Oh, exactly. I was just thinking of Beatty right there. Exactly, Warren Beatty. No, not Warren. Is it? Yeah, Warren
Ned Beatty.
Warren Beatty. Yeah. So
I got it pulled up here. I wanted to play it because
you want to play
man,
it?
Yeah, let's play it because this is.
Good. Ernie, at least one time a year, we always have to play Network. I swear to God.
Well, it makes more sense now with this kind of, it's not about, sovereignty or for the people or the best defending individual rights. We come out of this unscathed. Americans have a high standard of living because we thought through this process and used principle to decide if and when what's important. That blah, blah, blah. It's corporations. Rollerball with James Caan was a 70s movie that was, Rollerball was like, roller derby with a, ball. And they scored and
a lot of blood.
Elbows to the face kind of thing. And it was, like Running Man or, Demolition Man. It was a dystopian future kind of deal. And what it was is you could see there weren't really countries. It was just, everybody wore their NASCAR jersey with all the logos of whatever business on them. And it was corporation interest. This has been kind of the mantra from dissidents, the left, the patriots, the libertarians, or what you guys are setting up is not capitalism. What you guys are, this is Ayn Rand stuff. So it culminates into these movies in the late 70s of, here we go. And it was like a playbook. They go, thanks, Orwell. 1984, we're behind schedule, So I'm going to go ahead and play this, and you guys just sit back. It's 5 minutes, but it'll explain. It may not play the whole thing, but you'll get it. This is what's going on. All right, that's doing. It's for Ned Beatty.
Ned Beatty.
Okay, now what he's doing is towards the end of the movie Network, which is all about a network and how it turned into this infotainment, make money kind of BS thing. There's a character that comes out of this. It's kind of a cross between, I don't know, popular Phil Donahue meets, Sean Hannity or something.
Morton Downey Jr.
Morton Downey Jr. That's a good comparison. He's very popular because he's I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And he's yelling at the screen. It became a big hit. It was a big show. And he was so popular with millions of people paying attention back in the day when you had broadcast television networks to where you'd have up to 60 million people. Half of the freaking population of the country was watching the same things at night. This was massive programming. This was, we got it going on. Now they really got to, get AI to help them with, every little, make your blue face when you got your phone on and crap. So it was a lot easier back then with Project Mockingbird, and they control all these people. Well, this guy went off script, kind of saying whatever he wanted to say about, and he messed up some dealing with the petrodollar or something like that. He got involved with the money. Man, you're doing it freaking wrong. So he had to go to the head SOB in charge of the network, kind of going to explain it to him. Let me explain it to you. Well, this is what he's doing. He's explaining how the world really works.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature, Mr. Beale, and I won't have it. Is that clear? You think you merely stopped a business deal? That is not the case. The Arabs have taken billions of dollars out of this country, and now they must put it back. It is ebb and flow, tidal gravity. It is ecological balance. You are an old man who thinks in terms of nations and peoples. There are no nations. There are no peoples. There are no Russians. There are no Arabs. There are no third worlds. There is no West. There is only one holistic system of systems. One vast and immane, interwoven, interacting, multivariate, multinational dominion of dollars. Petrodollars, electrodollars, multi-dollars, Reichmarks, Rins, rubles, pounds, and shekels. It is the international system of currency which determines the totality of life on this planet. That is the natural order of things today. That is the atomic and subatomic and galactic structure of things today. And you have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone. Am I getting through to you, Mr. Beale? You get up on your little 21-inch screen and howl about America and democracy. There is no America. There is no democracy. There is only IBM and ITT and AT&T and DuPont, Dow, Union Carbide, and Exxon. Those are the nations of the world today. What do you think the Russians talk about in their councils of state? Karl Marx? They get out their linear programming charts, statistical decision theories, Minimax solutions, and compute the price-cost probabilities of their transactions and investments, just like we do. We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies, Mr. Beale. The world is a college of corporations, inexorably determined by the immutable bylaws of business. The world is a business, Mr. Beale. It has been since man crawled out of the slime. And our children will live, Mr. Beale, to see that perfect world in which there's no war or famine, oppression or brutality. One vast and ecumenical holding company for whom all men will work to serve a common profit, in which all men will hold a share of stock.
Shareholders.
All necessities provided.
Stablecoins.
All anxieties tranquilized. All boredom amused. And I have chosen you, Mr. Beale, to preach this evangel.
Why me?
Because you're on television, dummy. 60 million people watch you every night of the week, Monday through Friday.
I have seen the face of God.
You just might be right, Mr. Beale.
Network, the 70s.
Oscar.
It was, well, Faye Dunaway was in it, and some other, how was it? Just names that, were popular back then. And it is truer and truer every year. I remember watching this on VHS or something, probably in the late 80s, early 90s or something like that. And I'm like, whoa, man, if that's not everything I've been seeing, So this is what's coming, and it's a tsunami. That's why I keep talking. People don't understand the massiveness of what's going to happen. There is no Fed. There is no Treasury. There is no amount of gold. There is no possibility of them holding this off other than to throw the debt onto something or somebody else. They will sacrifice even the Fed in name only, and then it'll be CBDCs or something like that.
The private companies. Real quick, that's what they're commenting, is that you're neutering the Fed. You're not ending it directly. You're transferring it to the private companies. They, in essence, the stablecoin issuers are going to be acting as the Fed. And more importantly, they also will be, how much control will they have, like a network, over our own government?
And which one do you put in jail?
And they control the debt. I mean, at what point? I mean, granted, the government can tell Amazon about that they want certain information on certain people on one level, but at the same time, if Amazon is owning that amount of debt, it's like if you're a big shareholder, you tell the government what the hell to do and where to stick it. That's where this is. It's exactly what Ned Beatty. Sorry, I did say Warren Beatty. I knew I was saying it wrong earlier. But yeah, that's exactly what he was discussing. Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, we're living through it right now, and that's what the Genius Act is. And look, I'm hearing about it because of a lot of the investment mining site, gold sites and things like that. Of course, we're all watching that. That's a whole other discussion about the gold markets and what's going on. But the Genius Act is just this specter in the room, and the more you start to realize how Trojan it was. I mean, no one's really talking about it. I mean, I'm sure CNBC's not going to be talking about it. It's just they're laying the pipe down to eventually, I guess within a year or so, somehow this overture is going to be made of people saying, oh, we have to buy stable coins. And I just don't know how that's going to happen, especially when the cat's out of the bag that, okay, you're getting treasuries and it's based in dollars and dollars are going down. Granted, I know most Americans still can't grasp that concept, and you're not even getting interest on it. Like, I just don't understand why I would buy an Amazon coin rather than at least a Bitcoin. If I'm going to be even playing in that realm, why would I hold them? I just don't understand. I mean, I could use my credit card to buy Amazon unless I get like 10% off if I use Amazon coin. I mean, maybe that's what they're going to do, incentives. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, this is, I want to bring up this bankruptcy thing. When they do this repo thing and they do they talk about, well, they get an automatic stay if they don't buy it back, like overnight. Here's your $1,000, to pay for the $1 million I borrowed overnight. Well, if they don't and they keep the money because the security went down to nothing, there goes the debt. What happens to them? Well, we lent it to them. They're the one that took it. Sucks to be them. And, the injunction immediately, if a person files for bankruptcy, they become the debtor and are subject to an automatic stay. So is it a sale or is it a lending? Well, they go bankrupt. We're bankrupt. This injunction immediately and automatically stops most collection actions against the debtor and their property from creditors, including investors. So if Chase Bank goes and says, here's $1 million of, stablecoin trade, whatever the hell they want to do, and they give them the money and then they don't pay it back, well, they just go bankrupt. Then what? Do they come after them, sell their app? No, they're protected under bankruptcy. The automatic stay is not meant to protect outside investors in the bankrupt company. It protects the debtor from the creditors, not the investors from the debtor's financial failure. So this is pipe being laid. This is plumbing. This is electrical connections. This is the system that is set up for this to happen, for the default on the how are they going to do it? Well, whoever will take this debt. Well, who's that? I don't know. They make some kind of condition. Where's the money? In retirements, in 401ks, in IRAs, in the people's hand. We're rich freaking, oh my God, nation. We got boomers, a bunch of money ready to transfer, and we need a death tax. Well, I tell you who the death is going to be. It's going to be the financial system. There's your death tax. And it's gone. Because you have it in these companies and hedge funds and money markets and blah, 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 blah. Invest in what? We already saw this happen. What was it? MF Global. And I can't remember, was it Diamond or was whatever, it doesn't matter. It was Solente's thing. He does the futures deal, and they do rehypothecation, which I never even heard that word. What it was is they were counting on, they invested heavily in Greek bonds. They were thinking, instead of letting Greece renege on it or go, the European Central Bank was going to bail them out. They counted on that. Or maybe they didn't. They said they were, and they're behind the scenes. They were screwing you another way, which is just as likely. But what they did is they took all the deposits that they had and they invested it into this Greek bond thing. Well, then the time came up, options triggered, the margin call, whatever. They didn't bail out Greece, and all that money was gone. Gerald Celente goes, hey, I bought futures. Where's my gold? I bought, this contract. And they go, well, you totally agreed. You read the fine print, line 46 on page 433, that it says we can take your deposit and use it as collateral for us betting on these bonds and them get bailed out, which they didn't. So we lost it. It's called rehypothecation. You totally agreed. Sucks to be you. And he's like, what the? Hey, man, it came on the show, and I'm going, I guarantee you signed a piece of paper that said you totally agreed to whatever they just screwed you. Just saying. Yep, sure as crap. That's what happened. Well, they're going to do that on a planetary level. They're going to do that definitely. Where's the money? In the United States. Where? Pensions. 401ks, Social Security, retirement check, whatever. Yep. I mean, they got invested in the market. The market, it's at the highest it's ever, highest of the highest. And Trump's going, woo, we be a highest, and we're going to make it in the stock market's going to the moon.
Yeah, but if you think about it, too, it's the highest. But guess what else is the highest? Gold. And you keep in mind, this is what I was trying to tell some of my relatives who are just now, you know it's starting when the relatives who never cared start texting you, what's going on with that gold stuff? Well, last week it wasn't happening. And this past week, I'm starting to I got a text message from my relative who went to the jeweler, and they were showing her some silver, 1 ounces. And I think one had Star Wars or something on there. So she was thinking of me. She texts and she goes, "Oh, I was thinking of silver. Do you still buy silver?" She was very basic. But anyway,
I have a pipeline.
No, yeah, exactly. So anyway, I forgot I interrupted you there for. I forgot what my point. I'll come back.
Okay, we got the bankruptcy thing. It's protecting those that got these financial mechanisms to put the debt into, and then it goes to the Fed, and who do you arrest? And who gets in trouble? Who gets their weenie whacked? Who hasn't served time? Who did? Nobody. This is all about, this is why I keep going on. Quit delegating your personal choices, authority over your life, your decision-making capability to someone else. You keep doing it to someone else. Someone else will what? Someone else is going to serve someone else's interest, I guarantee that. Now, the repos extended beyond, here's one thing. I asked these questions. When did repos extend to more than overnight? Repos extended, and this is AI review of Google, whatever the hell it is. Repos extended beyond overnight in the early 2000s when term repurchase agreements, with terms lasting longer than overnight, up to about 2 years, became a common market practice. Though overnight repos are still widely used, however, the Federal Reserve's operational use of term repos for monetary policy expanded around September 2019, when they started conducting 2-week lending operations in addition to their daily overnight repos in response to a spike in short-term interest rates. This is when we had John Sneisen come on trying to explain this to me. I'm like, what the crap is going on? Why do they do it? Then they're doing, because they got a requirement to have a certain reserve on hand, and then that requirement gets less and less and less and goes away, and other countries don't. Then why are they still doing it? To me, because I'm not, everybody's all worried about in the details of who gets the commission makes and the points on and blah, 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 blah. I'm going, but why are they having this bleed on the system? It's just a bleed. It's just, all the people's money in it, it's just wasting away. It's just bleeding out to all of this crap. Overnight, just more and more interest. And then, of course, this interest, you got to print more dollars to pay the interest. And I'm going, this is not sustainable. Then you start to realize it's intentionally not sustainable. They're just creating the conduit, the pipeline, the plumbing, the electrical line, the infrastructure for them to take a gazillion dollars and put it somewhere where they get their money and everybody else gets screwed and has to pay it off or not or whatever, and it's gone. And this is what the Russian guys are going on about. They're going, whoa, 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 whoa. We see what's going on,
Well, so I just want to interject real quick. I apologize, audience. My last point escaped me, but I came back, and it was about the gold in the stock market. That was my point, is that the stock market is all-time high, and like you were saying, everyone's watching that. But gold is up, and of course the system is purposely not watching it. I mean, the gold is like all new high. And CNBC at the end of the show, after like an hour show, they'll say, "Oh yeah," as the credits are rolling, "Yeah, gold hit another high today. Have yourself a great week." Kind of reminds me of the 2008 election season with Ron Paul. They would just tack him at the end of a long push of all the other candidates. So, but the thing is with gold and stock market, keep in mind, gold is in essence the thermometer of the economy, right? When gold is low, that means the economy is, it's like your temperature. You have no fever, right? The temperature is low, and you're doing well. When gold is high, it means that you're sick. It's like the thermometer going high. You've got a fever, and the higher it goes, the sicker you are. So typically, and this is a key point that I was trying to explain to some of my relatives of late, is that they think that the stock market's going up and all their stocks, they're doing great. And when I'm saying yes, but gold is high as well, they don't understand the correlation. They see it as, well, of course gold is high. My Disney stock, well, Disney stock's always low because they're tanking. But, my Amazon's high, and, my Facebook is high, and, NVIDIA, that one's really high. Oh, my God, I'm doing great. Of course gold's high. They don't understand what that means. They just think, they look at it as a stock. I mean, even in ETF, they just see it as a stock. They don't realize that when the economy is booming, gold should be low, right? If we're at an all-time high stock market, how come gold's not an all-time low, especially priced in gold, right? And instead, they're both high. So that means one of them is like someone's lying to us, right? It's like you're a judge, right? And you have these two people.
Because it's been manipulated, they're losing manipulation control.
No, exactly. It's the fact that I've never seen both of them at the same time an all-time high, and that is that is the canary in the coal mine. So for people who are wondering, when to pull the trigger over things, or is gold going to have a pullback or whatever, I mean, that's a financial decision. But when you see both an all-time high, I don't know. I've never seen it like this before.
I don't know. Jim Craver is saying buy stable coins or gold or something. Well, whatever the hell he says, he'll do the opposite.
No, it's not about gold.
Yeah.
It's not about, and also, wait, speaking of which, this is also on my hot sheet. Massive change. Now, some of you have been really following the market, and Peter, you just had him, it was like 2 weeks ago, right? So I don't think Peter talked about it on the show. If so, correct me. But for the audience, massive news, massive for those of you that are following, the gold markets and such.
Peter Schiff.
Well, yeah, when Peter Schiff too, But Peter, I heard this from Peter, although this is, it's financial news, but it's just starting now to break in. Matter of fact, I spoke to even one of Peter Schiff's brokers the other day, and he didn't even know about it. It was only 2 days after Peter announced it on his own show, so it's fairly new. But what this news item is that the standard investment advice for, the run-of-the-mill investor, like Joe Schmo, 9 to 5, cubicle job, and they have their 401k, whatever, and they go talk to their Morgan Stanley broker or someone who helps with their investments, right? Well, these investment people, like I have a sister who's involved in this on Wall Street, and, you become captured. It's almost like you work for a university, and, you're supposed to be a brilliant area of ideas, and yet you're locked into what you're allowed to say. Or if, like, you work at McDonald's, you literally you have to make it exactly as they tell you. Well, these investment advisors, for most people, it's all cookie cutter. And now, if you see someone like Tim Picciott, giving him a quick plug there, he owes me 10% now. But if you see some of these guys, they will work with you individually and do kind of let's say, off the reservation thinking and strategizing, which is why people like Tim have a unique market. But when you go to like a brand name, Morgan Stanley, it is all cookie cutter. And what the standard investment portfolio is, or strategy, is 60% of your entire worth should be in stocks and 40% in bonds. So that has been kind of the gold standard, talk about the irony. But
can I explain why? Why do they recommend that? What incentive do they have to get them to do that?
I'll tell you at least my point of view on it. I'll tell you why. And then let me just tell you what just happened last week, and then you can comment. So and look, some of you investment people might have a different take on it. But for the customer, for an investor, the idea is that you have 60% in the stock market, which has the capability of outrising inflation. So you're making some wealth that way for your, to make more money for your retirement when things will cost more anyway. While at the same time, 40% are in bonds and T-bills, essentially, which is guaranteed by the government, because the government will never fail, of course. And so you're guaranteed at least kind of a foundation that the money will be there, maybe making only 2-3% or whatever it is, but at least you've got solid money that is not going to be taken away. So even if the stock market crashes, you at least have
right up until
close to 50% of your money you still have invested, or at least you have something. So that's the idea. Now, on the other side, this is not for necessarily the investor. The government loves this strategy as well, because it's forcing the American taxpayer, not forcing, but kind of leading you to buy the debt, right? So you're part of this Ponzi scheme in a way. And so it's a win-win of this so-called guarantee. So anyway, that's what it's been, 60-40. That's been the ratio. And if you fail that one on your exam, you probably fail your license. So that's what they all have to go by. In fact, those same kind of regulations will even limit how much gold you're allowed to have. I think if you talk to any gold investor, they'll say that even Peter Schiff back in the day, he cannot say on air to buy more than 10% or have more than 10% of the portfolio in gold. Now, of course, they could argue that, well, gold is not a good investment, and they don't want people becoming gold bugs. You could also argue that from the government's point of view, if people put all their money in gold, you're pulling it out of the dollar, which they don't want that either. So that's the strategy, and Ernie, I'm sure, will have something to add to it. But what just happened last week or 2 weeks ago is that Morgan Stanley, now the other banks have not followed suit yet, but that's the question. They changed their recommendation, which has been there since the 10 Commandments. It's like the 11th commandment. To now, the new strategy is 60% stocks, just like before, but the 40% is split. 20% in bonds still. I mean, that's still like one bond more than I would ever own. And 20% in gold. In gold. This is Morgan Stanley. 20%. I mean, I could see them switching it to maybe 5% or 8%. I mean, 20% is bold. I mean, to go from
I got a question.
From a mom and pop investor that has like no position in gold to suddenly 20% of their portfolio recommendation should shift to gold. That is massive. And I think that is like the example of when grandma or the Mad Money
I got a question.
All right. I don't know if I have an answer, but go ahead.
Why?
Why what?
Why do they set those standards? Who sets them? You know what? They go, well, you only have 60-40. Well, that's what Tim was successful. Screw you. He's going to do whatever in crypto, and he does well. Why do these other guys all cookie cutter recommendations up? Now, what stocks you get or how you do the trade? Well, Treasury are pretty standard. They're going, all right, well, we'll do 2-year, 10-year, 30-year, month, whatever the hell 3 months, and we'll play games on what kind or play games on what equities or play games. But they still have this percentage of distribution. Why? Who made that up? Who holds them to it? What's the incentive? Who stays after school if they don't do it? Why? Why?
Well, I just gave you my thoughts. Is that the government wants people invested in the dollar rather than outside the dollar. So convincing people to buy bonds helps them. I mean that's one specific.
No, but why do these brokers follow it? Why? Because Biden gave him a phone call?
It's the same reason. Why? The same reason that doctors go and become doctors and they get out and then they're instructed to put experimental drugs in people's arms and they go Sig Heil. So again, they get captured. A lot of it is it gets too fundamental of just people's lack of critical thinking and just trust in the government, overt trust that, of course, we've seen eroded over the last 5-10 years, and we've chronicled on the Trump report ad nauseum. So I think that's what a lot of it is.
All right, I'll go. I'll do a search here when you go on your next hour rant, and I'll find out why. And I guarantee it's going to be an incentive. There's going to be, if you don't do it, and you
the incentive is you don't lose your job. That's how they're told. I mean,
yeah, well, who fires you?
If you call Europe Pacific, if you talk to them maybe outside in the parking lot and you're kind of off the clock, they'll tell you different stories. But when you're on the clock and you have to talk to them, brokers, they even are forced to say, look, just so you know, we have handcuffs on, and you're not supposed to have more than 10% of your assets in gold. So,
handcuffs from where?
From the government, the regulatory, whatever it is that regulates these guys. That's their.
Okay, now we're getting to the answer.
That's what it is.
Government,
it's a license deal.
All right, so if you're doing it wrong, which is whatever the hell we say is wrong, then you are held liable. Yeah, there's some kind of, I don't know, whatever incentive during bankruptcies or tort action or shareholders or what. There's some incentive that provides an opportunity for they, them, those to be able to take whatever business model you have and shove it into the envelope, into the box, shoehorned into the preferred financial system that they have determined is best for not you, okay? This is what's going on. So when everybody says, well, it's 60-40, it's 60-20-20, yeah? Why? Says who? Why are they going by it? It only takes the libertarian, narco-capitalist, free-thinking, red, creature from Jekyll Island, did some, I'm not an idiot, education stuff to go and say, what do I got to do to get out of this? Tim Pachote, the Liberty Advisor, good friend of Frank and mine, been on the show many times, and what he did is he paid $17,000 to get out out of a license so he wouldn't go to jail, so he could go to an event in Mexico and talk about future planning with crypto. You guys are all crypto rich now. Years ago, yeah, this is 6-7 years ago. Years ago, that what are you going to do with this newfound wealth? How are you going to get it in the system? How are you going to legally bypass taxes and capital gains and be sure to be able to get it and hold it and blah, 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 blah. That's what we're working on. This financial system did not want that information getting out until they got it the way they wanted it. Well, he's just like, nope, I'm good. I'm out. Well, you'll lose your, fine. Here, take it. Well, it'll cost you $17,000. All right, here's a check. I'm out of your system. I can see what's coming. So now they went on steroids. Now they found a mechanism by which they can take this $38 trillion debt. They're going, all right, gold in Fort Knox is valued at $42. Why? I have no freaking idea, but they got it valued. What they have is, I don't know, 1 million something ounces of whatever, doesn't matter. They got enough, they say, I mean, I don't believe damn thing anyway, but from what they claim that they got, you revalue it at the $3,800 or whatever it is now, how much is it? It's less than $1 trillion on a $38 trillion debt. Now, my option is we revalue, they're coming up, they say, we'll revalue the gold, it's going to be $1 trillion. Are they going to put it up for auction? They're going to sell it to the people? They're going to get premium on, gold eagles? Or what are they going to do with it? Well, we're just going to create this here piece of paper, kind of like a repo thing, and give it to the Federal Reserve. Yeah, that's it. Federal Reserve can have, first claim on it. And in exchange, just like with the repo market, they're going to give them $1 trillion. Well, that $1 trillion is going to be gone in a month. I mean, just saying. So the $1 trillion, now I have two options. I could have $1 trillion in gold at Fort Knox for America and a $38 trillion debt, or I can sign it over to the Fed and have a $37 trillion debt and no gold. Which one do I want to do? I'll tell you what they want to do. They want to transfer to a private central bank all our gold. I say our advisedly. Yeah, so they put all the gold. Fed gets it. It's ours now. Thanks for playing. Here's $1 trillion. And what do you think is going to happen to that $1 trillion? Well, we're going to invest it into investing and make more, money and, tax you more. And I'm going, you did 20-something trillion dollars during COVID that went to foreign banks and all other kinds of crap. And I'm going, what makes you think I'm going to trust you? Stupid. So this is what's going on right now. Part of that pipeline, part of that plumbing, that conduit that they're creating right now is to help facilitate that. It's a rape on everything. All that debt will go into some stable coin kind of, and it's gone. All of the gold, we got kind of $1 trillion cut off the top. If we have some liquidity, going to invest, and it's gone. To whom? They, them, those. So I'm going, wow. So then what does Putin do? In September, just this last month, or weeks ago, Putin advisor Anton Kobyakov accused the U.S. of planning a scheme to use stablecoins to devalue its national debt. Kobyakov made the remarks at the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok, where he claimed the U.S. was seeking to rewrite the rules of the gold and crypto market. And rewrite them to what? To benefit who? Them, I guarantee it. Details of the accusation. The crypto cloud, according to Gobyakov, the U.S. plans to move its debt, which he put at around 35 to 37 trillion, and I'm sure it's a lot more than that. The Empire of Debt, book by Bill Bonner and Addison Wiggins, that I've had on the show, and back in 2004-05, around there when we were on Air America, they came out and they did. It's like $250 billion. It's like, oh my God, It's certainly at least 80 trillion with all the entitlement debt. It's more than this. Okay, a lot. Into a crypto cloud. They put all this debt into a crypto cloud, whatever that is, by issuing stablecoins backed by U.S. dollars and debt instruments. So this stablecoin is worth what? It's worth dollars and probably primarily a debt instrument, which is going to be these loans that these banks kind of put in and got money from the Fed and kind of, it's a debt instrument. It's debt. Devaluation. He alleged that the U.S. would then intentionally devalue that debt, effectively starting from scratch, to solve its financial problems at the world's expense. Kobiakov did not provide specifics on how stablecoins would be used to devalue the debt. Now, he just, we're not going to give you $1 anymore. That's what Nixon did with the gold. The pinky swear was, I bring in dollars, you give me gold. Now, that was only good for foreign countries, which France and de Gaulle was doing that. They came in with the ship and say, give me. You're printing all this money, devaluing, inflating the hell out of it, with Vietnam War, going to military-industrial, you're not keeping the dollar sound, we want our gold. Not today, we closed the window, it sucks to be you. You think you're not going to do it again? Seriously? Historical comparison. Gobiakov drew parallels to past U.S. debt management tactics in the 1930s and 70s, suggesting that this modern strategy echoed past actions. How far off is he? They know. I know. Because they can. And they're demonstrating it right, not later. They're showing you how they're going to do it. So what's the play? I have no idea. I'm better, just buy gold and silver. It's not going to go to zero. They'll manipulate it up and down and up and down and up and down, but sooner or later, they're going to need some. Silver has been so manipulated and is starting to dry up just for industrial uses that when they put futures on it, you got big companies out there buying it. I remember my kids, 3 of my kids, and we had a whole gaggle of family that was working at Honeywell Aerospace years ago. And they had big safes that had big bars of silver. Why? Because they needed it for components, a part of electronic or something, whatever the hell they were doing. And they bought it in bulk. It's an industrial metal. It is used for superior conductivity for all kinds of electronics and so on, solar panels, whatever. Gold can be used too, but it's expensive. And then silver just as good or better or whatever they do, silver. So it's an industrial metal that's depleted. It's going down. Why was it held so low for because they turned it into paper with these electronic transfer, systems, these indexes of kind of sort of wish I almost had some gold and silver. That is not the price. That's the manipulated price. And then they go, you conspiracy nut, until now they're paying fines for getting caught of doing it. Well, you're a whole conspiracy nut the whole time, because you think they were manipulating. I mean, yeah, whatever. And this was the final thing that got me I'm not smart enough to outdo in the timing of, I'm just going to buy as much silver, which is not a lot. I'm not sitting on worth coming out risking your life. But, it's some, and I'm kind of counting on it. So I would get it. Why? Somebody said to me, good friend, he goes, wealthy guy, and he says, I go, what's the future for precious metal? What do you think? How stupid is this going to get? He goes, one question. Do you think that the United States government will ever stop increasing the debt? Nope. There's your answer. And that's exactly what's been going on. And Trump comes in, we're going to fix it by increasing the debt and allowing the banks and everybody kind of, to get their money out, and then we renege on the debt, and Russia's right. It's going to be, sucks to be you. You trusted the U.S. You thought it was going to be stability and we'll pinky swear forever and always pay it back. And the mechanism for that being easier to default or revalue or change, stablecoin. Why is it stable? It's connected to the dollar. Who did that? How do you change that? And why do I want to buy, stuff that's pegged to a deteriorating value product? That the dollar goes down, what happens to the stablecoin? It goes down. What if they can make it go down? What if? I don't know. Can they? Well, guess what? Just saying.
Well, they're doing it anyway. I mean, even Vance was talking about it, and I think even Trump as well. I think Vance was asked about how it's great to be the global currency and all of this, how strong the dollar is, trying to pump it up. And Vance said, he goes, actually, that's not always a good thing. He says it's not always good to have a strong dollar. We being the international standard has hurt America. That's what he was pointing out. That having a strong, which it has. I mean, there's a lot of dynamics behind that, but by keeping the dollar so-called strong, it keeps everything else, weak and weaker compared to the dollar, which is good for our allies or for the people who trade in dollars, because then they could sell us more stuff, and it's good for their economies, which of course hit our manufacturing base, and they all left overseas. So it screwed us over, but it was done. A big part of it is to entice other countries to keep using dollars because you could get a lot more with it, with the American market. So that's been going on for a while. I just think that the weakness now is something they won't be able to hide. And I think Vance is going with the idea that maybe we should weaken the dollar. Now, I don't know if this is, the dollar's going down anyway, and whether this is Vance's idea of saying, well, I'm going to pretend like we're still in control. We're the ones thinking about weakening the dollar, because clearly the actions that they're making is weakening it, is debasing the dollar. And, he's trying to spin it as if it'll be a good thing ultimately. But, again, it's like what Peter Schiff and others talk about. It's the race to the bottom of all the currencies. And this will be ours as well. Now, the question I have, though, I don't know, not that you'll have an answer, perhaps, but I see a conflict, though, of what Trump is doing. You see, if you're going to export this debt, or forget even the stable coins for a minute, just for countries to hold on to our debt, still buy our debt.
Plumbing.
One of the reasons that they buy our debt, whether it's as greenbacks or stable coins, is that they get a benefit. Now, before, let's say, the benefit was that they could, export to us, and it strengthened their economies. Okay, but if that's going away, inflation's too high, people aren't making any money, people are bankrupt, the dollar's being debased, all of that, then what would be another reason for other countries to jump on this Ponzi scheme and allow America to export its debt to everybody? So what would be the reason? And this is where I think another whole part to this puzzle is thrown in, and that is NATO. It's the international foreign policy. Because, why is it that NATO, it's supposed to be, split amongst all these countries equally, but as we all know, NATO is really just America, the bully of the world, and then you have these other countries putting in a token, kind of like the token black guy. They have the token a couple soldiers they put, and not to undermine anyone who's fought, alongside with America, but it's just, it's all token. And we make up the difference. And, of course, the quid pro quo is if we decide to bomb Iran, you're all going to support us, right? You're going to get out the pom-poms and cheerlead, right? So that's how it's been, for a long time. Well, now you've got Trump, and which is, I think he's schizoid at this point. He ran on no war, and he makes policies, overtures of no war, and yet this 2.0, he's turning into a full war president. Now some people could argue, well, Biden made it really bad for him, whatever. But no, the whole Netanyahu thing, the deal with Israel and Iran, that's just our country being, basically captured by Israel, and that gets into the whole Israel thing. We'll talk about Charlie Kirk in just a little bit and that whole deal. But then, of course, happening with Russia, we're on the verge of World War III there. Putin, is escalating. Well, I think we're the ones escalating, in my opinion. But anyway, we have a whole war breaking out there. Possibly might go to a much higher level, more active. So NATO, though, has been screaming for America to still defend Ukraine, stop this evil Putin. And one of the reasons that they're so adamant about it is because it's almost like having a wealthy parent, and they have their kids, their 5 kids or whatever, and they all born with silver spoons in their mouths. They've never really worked hard to put food on the table and get a house. I'm not saying it's everybody, but I know a lot of some wealthy families where the kids are a lot softer than the patriarch who created the empire. You know what I mean? And so I feel that's what's happened. The rest of these NATO countries in Europe, they have never really had to have their military operational. They just sent a few troops to NATO every time America wants to bomb somebody, and that was about it, because they knew that if they were a good steward and a good boy, and they backed up America and they put in their 1% GDP or whatever they claimed, then America would take care of them. America had their back, like the bodyguard, and then those countries could just put their resources into other things, like free health care and free daycare and everything else that the left says. You look at all these European countries, how wonderful they are. Yeah, well, they have the money to do a lot of that also. Not that I want the government to be involved in all that, but they have extra money because it's not going into the military-industrial complex. We're the ones defending everybody. So they've gotten very weak and pouchy and everything. They've never learned to defend themselves. They don't even have probably the spirit to do so. Maybe to defend their own country, but not to stop Putin. They're just not physically. They don't have the military. They don't have the willpower. They don't have the network. They don't have the physical and the emotional and the mental infrastructure as a country to take these things on. I mean, heck, a bunch of leftists have captured these countries, and they're weak, and they don't even have a Second Amendment. So most of those people haven't even fired a gun or held a gun in these countries. Even the conservatives in those countries don't have a lot of access or experience with it. So I'm getting a little long-winded on that point, but you have to understand what the rest of the world. That's why I like to talk about international issues here. Those countries now see Putin as a threat to them. I don't think he is, but it's been drummed up that he is. So they kept saying, "Oh, America's got to help. America help." Biden gets in and then starts going after Putin, which made them all happy. He's part of the whole NATO cabal. And then Trump gets in. He's like, "No, you guys have to pull your own weight, and we want to pull out of this. And it was a campaign promise. I'm not going to be dealing with it." Well, it's suddenly, and he said what last time at the UN. He basically was saying, if you guys want to fight him, you guys go ahead. Of course, you can buy your weapons from us. Military-industrial complex incorporated. You can buy them from us, but you guys go ahead. Now, I like that policy plan in a certain way, without picking that one apart. But the question is these two major things: the exporting our debt, and then how we're handling NATO. Is what is the incentive left with Trump undermining NATO and saying, you guys go fight your own wars, and for them to be buying our debt? Why would Europe buy our stablecoin if we're not,
or at least buy our military equipment, which they reneged
on? Touche. Although I think that pales in comparison to buying the debt. So I mean, they'll buy the weapons, but they'll buy Unify and their own militaries together. But I think the amount of money so if America could choose if they're buying our military weapons versus our debt, they would pick the debt definitely. So it's
all part of negotiation.
Front,
you want us to buy your debt? We get to buy this at a discount to kind of do a deal. Maybe we'll make a deal. Maybe they're Republican.
Well, my feeling is that they'll be losing a hell of a lot more money if they don't buy our debt over weapons. And then if we're debasing our dollar at the same time, there's no advantage to support the debt and our economy if Americans can't even buy their products anymore. So the economy is not an incentive. The military of us backing them is not an incentive. And yet we still are expecting, apparently with this Genius Act, call it the Dumbass Act, the Genius Act, is that they're supposed to be
always opposite, whatever they call it.
Because Russia's not buying it. China's not going to be buying this. So the BRIC nations, which keep growing every day, they're not going to be buying this stuff. I mean, I think they're smart enough to avoid that. The whole point of the BRICS is to get outside the dollar. Why are they going to buy tokenized, crypto, made-up fiat 10.0? They're not going to do that. So again, the only market left is Europe, and they're all falling apart. And there's no incentive the way Trump is playing the NATO card, unless he is playing two-faced, which he probably is, where he's telling us that he doesn't want to get involved, but maybe secretly he is going to be defending NATO and push back at Putin. And if we're at World War III, then you know what? Europe got what they wanted, and you kick the bear, you kick the beehive. Putin now gets all riled up when World War III. Well, now NATO, I just pissed off Putin, and if I'm not there to protect you, he's coming after you. So if you want us across the ocean to be protecting you, buy our stable coins. I kind of wonder if that's kind of intentional or not, but that's a hell of a setup.
It is the repudiation of our $38 trillion to gazillion billion dollar debt. This is how it's going to happen, and it's part of the Great Reset. It's part of they, them, those. It's part of the New World, whatever the hell. It's the surveillance state of yada yada. It's the technological takeover of the planet, and you're freaking just a commodity. This is what the plan is. It's obvious. They're right on the edge of doing it, and I don't know what role Trump is playing in this, is that he thinks he can come out on top somehow. And we could be the biggest massa. We have the most people. We're the most influential in the slave state. We're the ones. And he doesn't understand that they, them, those don't give a shit who's in charge. They just want to create the financial plumbing to be able to make money on whoever's in charge. We don't care who wins this war, as long as there's war, So it's so obvious that I'm looking at it going, okay, what should I, as a human being, be doing for myself, my family, my kids, my grandkids? Probably should insulate myself as much as I can from this, be more self-sufficient, occupy the land. That's why that is being done. Now, Frank, you go over, he got all serious about solar, and now he's got his, super backup in his living room of powering whatever crypto miners if he wanted to. But and it's along these lines. He's purchased land before. He's got, he's thinking along these lines. He's got to go because I got to go talk to my broker. I got to talk to my precious metals guy. I got to go. And so I'm like, all right, so, Frank's taking care of business. But I'm telling you, the tsunami that is coming is going to be all that gold and silver and, crypto and value. What's it going to buy you? What do you need it to buy you? Food production, a place, the ability to generate power, preservation of food, chickens. You better get on it, because the whole reason for doing that is for physical security, that you can breathe in and out for longer than everybody else. I don't have to outrun the bear. I just got to outrun y'all. So I'm outrunning y'all. I'm outrunning. So the thing that I'm encouraging the audience, since I first started doing radio, buy silver. Well, people that did, they're all, God, man, you were right. And then you were right again. And then you were right again. Now it'll go down, up and down, up and down, up and down. In my lifetime, it went to like $80 or something when I was in high school, in the late 70s. The Hunt brothers were doing what they were doing in Texas. And then they went, oh, no, we got to get control on this. That's when the real manipulation started. And why did it happen? Because they were freaking taking the dollar off the gold standard. They had all kinds of freaking dials and knobs and slides and adjustments they had to freaking deal with to drag it out as long as we have now with a $38 trillion debt. So I am seeing this great reset Klaus Schwab was going on about. It's planned. It's baked in the cake. This has been, an inevitable result of what they've done over time. And now, stablecoins, what Patrick Byrne demonstrated when he did his T0 thing and doing a lot of his blockchain stuff, is that the problem was how much resistance, how much long time, guys on bicycles delivering pieces of paper in the market of whatever the hell, that there was, oh my God, the naked short selling that was possible because there was no settlement of the transaction that took long. No. Now with crypto, these things are fast. And when you go in about the Russia's bold accusation is the U.S. planning to use stablecoins to wipe out its $35 trillion debt. I don't know. Can they? Stablecoins are like IOUs for real money, representing a digital claim on assets like the U.S. dollar. And more things. They want it for timber, oil drilling rights, river, water. They're going to tokenize freaking everything. This is Aaron Day we're working with on Xano. He has a show now because I just got to have a show. I got to get this stuff out. Donna listens to him a lot. I listen to some of his stuff. And, what's he going on about? The revolution, the Levolution will be tokenized. That's his big thing. I say decentralized. He thinks the same thing. But tokenized. Why? He wants it tokenized into private hands, not government. And if we don't do that, it's going to just all get swept up into government tokenized if we own this and rule and you got to bid for whatever. But everything. We got RFID chip on trees. I mean, that kind of deal. It'll back cash, U.S. Treasuries, and other securities. They act as a bridge between traditional finance and the crypto world, promising stability by holding equivalent value in these reserves. Why? Says who? Even though stablecoins are designed to maintain a stable value, typically pegged 1-to-1 to the U.S. dollar to help trades in the crypto world, we hear more and more about them today. Major banks, fintech companies, and other market makers started to use stablecoin for faster, cheaper, and easier transfers globally as an alternative to the current slow, expensive, oh my God, banking system. Players include Tether, the Circles USD coin, USDC, with the total stablecoin market capitalization hovering around $285 billion as of September 25. That is nowhere near 35, 37, 38, 30 gazillion trillion dollars. That's not the point. It's the plumbing. They have the plumbing now. Here be the plumbing. When it's time, it'll be a gazillion turned, switched over, tokenized if I push the button, and it's gone. This is what's being done right, not later. And the Russians said, you guys see what's going on, right? Now, the Russians will use Tether and so on. Why? Because it bypasses sanctions. It's crypto. They can get around and go and do and whatever and bite me. So that's all I really have to say on this. The Genius Act was just a mechanism for creating the plumbing to allow for the repudiation of the debt and they, them, those, and whoever is stupid enough to whatever, and it's gone. And it's done. And it's reset. We got the Great Reset. America on top, so saith Trump. Whatever's going on. They're creating the plumbing for it to happen. And it's not for you. They did it to be able to get all of these different funds, all these trades, all these equity, all this stuff that ultimately is vastly probably in mostly pensions, 401ks, IRAs, retirement of boomer babies that have an enormous amount of wealth. And that's why in Great Britain, what do? They go, we're just going to have a death tax, an inheritance tax. We don't want you to transfer, and it's gone, and it goes to the government, and you don't get death tax we get the money. Now, the rich, wealthy SOB, I guarantee they got some shelter, offshore kind of different ownership, corporate, whatever the hell they're doing, to where they're protected. But rank and file people, no, not so much. This is not about you. It's about them. You're just a big, giant piggy bank. The middle class in America is just, why'd you rob them? Because that's where the money was, dummy. The Russians brought this out. I mean, they didn't get all detailed. They didn't have to. They just go, we know what they're going to do. They're going to put it all in stable coins, devalue it, and you're done. You've already done it. All right. So what are you going to do? Plan on it. Get ready for it. Occupy the land. Store up some, goodies. What's that silver gold going to buy you anyway? You better get some MREs. You better, buy some seeds. You better. This is when it was obvious this was going on. So when we were screaming on the show, years ago when we were at our other home in the studio in there, I'm just going, no, time to buy another 50-pound bag of beans. All menstruating women must come to me. So I had a bunch of tampons. Woo! Where are all the, hundreds of rolls of toilet paper? Because every time I'd say that, Donna would go do it. Well, where did she put it? In the attic. I forgot all about it. I wasn't even paying attention. I would just, get some more whatever. Grandkids go up there. We were moving. They go, we found all the toilet paper and paper towels and hand sanitizer and whatever. Why? Because she's going to Sam's Club, Costco, whatever, buying in bulk, putting it up there. When the grandkids went and there was no paper products out anywhere, they go, Grandma and Grandpa, that's why we don't have it. They got it all. Well, a little bit. But hundreds of rolls. So this is, I'm doing this again. Now you need a place to put that stuff. Now you need a place to keep breathing in and out. You need a place to build, to add, to be, leave me aloneism. This is where we're going, and this is just one of the telltale signs that it's going to happen, and it's going to be a tsunami. It is not going to... The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation will last about a nano moment. It will overwhelm, but there is no paying this stuff back. They know it. What are they going to do about it? They got to repudiate on the debt. They got to eliminate it. They got to something. Well, who's going to pay for that? Whoever's invested in this economy, whoever's got it in the dollar, whoever. This is when Peter Schiff spoke at one of our Freedom Summits. I think it was 2005. And he comes up and he said, get out of the U.S. dollar. This is a couple of years before the financial crash hit in '08. And he goes, get out of the U.S. dollar. Buy foreign stocks. Invest in other currencies. They're doing better now at the moment. And, some of the people took him seriously. They understood from his presentation. They weren't being told the truth. Why? Because they're brokers following some, government decided you have to 60-40 of the cut of because we say. Screw you guys. I don't believe shit you guys say. So they followed Peter Schiff. He turned out being right. They made bank. He didn't go into crypto. Tim Picciott did. He did the same thing. He goes, look, you need to get out of this and this and this and do this. Boom. His clients made shirts that they all wear. Picciott was right. All this stuff. So, where'd you get that shirt? Oh, one of my, clients did. And they're all excited and happy because they made bank during everybody else got the crap beat out of them. Now, of course, their friends were making fun of them. Oh, you're listening to that, not Jim Cramer guy. It's like, wow. So all the other news that we're going to be talking about now, I think has that as a shadow.
Yeah, not true. I want to ask you, look, I know before you say they, them, those, and the people at BlackRock, they all know, I get it, whatever. But I'm curious, how much do you think the establishment understands this? Like I hate to bring this as an example, Jim Cramer. Do you think Jim Cramer really understands what's happening here? I mean, between the Genius Act and the debt and why gold's go do you think he knows and he's just getting his marching orders from the economic Operation Mockingbird, or do you think he just really doesn't know that our populace has been captured so much? I've used the word a few times today. In this mindset, America's too big to fail. I'm not going to read the text, but there was someone who I know who's married to someone on Wall Street. I know a few people on Wall Street, and they, somehow this thing came back and forth about gold. There was another person asking just in the last week, so the canary's starting to sing here, or starting to cough, and he was asking about gold, and he basically said, I still don't understand this gold thing. This is a really smart person. He's like a CEO of a I don't know. Let's just say it's a high tech company, right? And so he's not a stupid guy, and he knows about history. I love talking history with him, American history. He's a really smart guy, and but he just can't grasp the gold issue. He made a comment about there's still there's not enough gold for everyone. That if we turn around, we've all heard that one. If you start buying gold, then it's going to be bad for our position in the world, and isn't it going to make it worse for our international creditors and all that? And
where'd you get this from?
No, I know. I matter of fact, Savard even read it, And I'm thinking, what are you even talking about? He even asked about, well, if the dollar goes down and gold price goes up, how are you going to be able to buy? Like, it didn't make any sense. And this is a very sensible person that I've known for decades. So we're having an interchange here. I'd like to get more an understanding, not just to help them, but although I don't have the time to help people anymore, people who are so far behind. But I'm curious his mindset as the canary in the coal mine, like watching CNN. What do these people think? So how does someone who's really smart, he's very, actually intelligent, let me just be more precise, married to someone who's on Wall Street, who, is selling kind of like the 60-40 stuff to rich people. And the irony is this one person, another person on Wall Street, this person sells to the rich and famous, a whole bunch of like real rich clients. And still, it's like cookie cutter investment advice about the standard, portfolio. And I'm thinking, if I had millions and millions of dollars, I probably would not want just regular cookie cutter advice. But this is what they're suggesting. So here I've got people from that background who still can't wrap their head around even the fundamentals with gold, and it just makes you realize how separate we are as far as our viewpoint and how separate most of our neighbors are. It also is a very good sign about how much more time we have to prepare. And I don't say that, too overly optimistic.
Not long.
I mean, not long. No, exactly. And it's just going to hit them even harder when this reality, it's like the ice bucket challenge, just drops on them. But it just fascinates me that they can't see it, that they don't understand how all these different signs. Why is the central bank of America buying more gold since November of 2024, and each month since 2024, they have bought, our central bank, more gold than throughout every year of American history since World War II. I mean, if you add up every year since 1941 or whatever, we've bought more gold in just the last going on a year. Next month will be a year of buying all this gold. Why?
Because they got to build up for that audit accountant.
It's like when, or to start, and then I'm hearing too that a lot of the gold we have is not pure gold. It's like mixed or alloys. So they're going to have to refine the gold in order to get it to a pure status if we're going to start announcing and showing how much gold that we have. You've got the central banks around the world that were already buying gold, especially since Charles Goyette's book hit China. They started buying a lot of gold, buying the gold mines, all the mines in Africa. We've covered that. I mean, so now, and then our country, suddenly some mysterious person named Satoshi drops Bitcoin on America, and then CNBC, that was just buy Exxon and buy regular stocks and flip houses. Suddenly it's like crypto, Bitcoin, nonstop. And I never could understand why they try to adopt it so quick, at least back in the day. Like, why would CNBC suddenly be so economically progressive? Are they becoming libertarian? So it gets me worried, and I'm not trying to bash the Bitcoin community, but when you don't know who did it, it came out at the same time that the Great Recession happened, and the rest of the world starts buying gold, and our country suddenly drops this mysterious deal. Then you find out that Satoshi is the second or maybe third largest holder of Bitcoin, right? If you actually look, the second largest holder of Bitcoin is Satoshi, and we don't even know who this guy is, right? That makes me worried. It's kind of like the XRP, not to get into the XRP deal, but I looked into that, and you find out that the three original investors, own like the majority of all the XRP, and they just release a little bit at a time. It's not just organic from the people. So it worries me that there's so many unknowns, and yet people are banking their future on it. Now, I would say maybe you put some, it's not financial advice, but for me, maybe put a little bit into it. I mean, if it's going to go to the moon, then there you go. But it's a real far stretch, in my opinion, for the rest of the world after we're trying to export our debt and how we're failing on many fronts, that they're going to just give us another mea culpa and start, or we are, and then they're going to start buying our debt and support this further. It just makes no sense. So anyway, that was admittedly a very rambling question to you. I will admit it that time.
I know there's a question in there somewhere.
That time I will admit it to you. Normally you don't hear what I'm saying, but this time I was rambling. But with all that setup, sincerely, and don't just go, oh yeah, they, them, those, no. But did you feel that most of these people in these leadership jobs, professors at colleges, the rest of them, do you think that they know and they're just not admitting it? They're just going by the plan, or do they do they really? I mean, do they know or not know? Or what's your sense from talking to people?
All right. My opinion is, such as Ernie, who gives a crap what Ernie thinks. My opinion is this. Any name that you hear as the expert on the Jim Cramer people, CNBC, Fox News, all these guys, they do not emphasize any real fundamentals other than their fundamental is not things like supply and demand, general public opinion, will of the people, the weather. I mean, that's not where they get any kind of base foundational understanding or what they're advocating is going to happen. Where they get their input, their authority, there is some, guy in a white lab coat with a stethoscope around his neck on health. A guy with a three-piece suit, and Italian shoes. A guy that has a shiny badge with the government, a regulatory commission, a policy, a senator. This is where they make their decisions. The policy is the policy of this. It's just like with ESG and DEI on the stock market. I saw this in the freaking mid-'80s. They were having stocks were valued based on what they did for society. How many, we got this arbitrary number of how many college graduates do you have in the management level of blah, blah, blah. How many, black, gay, trans, lesbian women do you have that identify as a cat on your board? How many, all this crap. This is how they view the future and what is and is not the truth, or where things are going, and then they immerse you in that, and you hit it from all directions. You get it at college, you get it on TV, you get it in the movies, you get it on Disney, that's why we cover a lot of pop culture here. This is how they are able to make those rationalizations. They will go, this is what's going to happen and why. Every single time I have conversations with these people, it's gone since the early 90s when I'm doing as a candidate, as a chairman of the party, as a businessman, as a, I have absolutely no input on them other than at the forums, at the town hall meetings, at the campaign events, and the election, and the whatever, because all the media and the press was ever to do was to, how many adjectives they could do and how crazy Libertarian Ernie is. When time comes around and it's neon freaking told you so, do they change? Do they see something? No, that's not their job. Their job is to parrot what is in their personal self-interest is the support of the machine. The machine to do what? Well, they don't care. The machine. To have a machine. What if we didn't have a machine? We would be machineless. We got to support the machine. Otherwise people would be out there unmachined, So that basic fundamental philosophy of the proper role of anything, now it's all profit. It's going to be, it has to be a profit of the profit and this account and this quarter profit of the, so they make these decisions based on, there's no long-term thinking, there's no philosophy, there's no proper role of government, until it crashes. Well, debt, just another vector, another point, population, fertility, just another point on the graph, the future of, just another point, just another point, just another point, just another point. But it's all subject to a philosophy. What is the proper role of delegated authority to the monopoly of force kind of thing? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? They don't care, aren't educated to care, or to understand and see the ramification of them not caring. So when you get people that just don't care how it affects people, well, guess what? They don't care how it affects people, and stuff's going to happen.
I don't know if I'm not going to say that they all don't care. I think it's just they're ignorant of this. Now, what you're talking about is a very
ignorance. Willful.
Well, I know people in my family who are,
willful
their
ignorance.
Foundational rule. Well, it's willful ignorance, what have you, but it's not, I think, in their mind, trying to be draconian in their mind. Look, I'm not going to get. I agree with you in principle completely, and foundationally, I agree. That gets back to our the debate about culture and rights and all sorts of things. So we agree at fundamentally.
No, I got people that I love in my family that are in this, as you do you.
Yeah.
And they look at the situation. Wait. We're heavy invest in this. I got, I'm almost out. I got, my multiple, however many kids they got. They're almost out the last one's out of college. And then they're a little bit nicer to me going, well, how's that work? Should we, what do you think about what? Because they wanted to get through that time in their life. They wanted to keep a roof over their head. They wanted to, be semi-popular, not chastised at their country club. They wanted to get along well with their employer and maintain their job.
When it was convenient.
When it's convenient. But then all of a sudden things are going to start happening. Are they making in the last third of their life decisions for them to kind of weather this thing? And what is it that they're preparing for? They're starting to see what I'm talking about of the tsunami. When it goes, that's why I say, it won't happen all at once. You'll see all this crap that we're seeing now, just the headlines on Freedom's Phoenix. I'll start scrolling here for the audience. You'll look at all this stuff and you go, damn, that's it. But it will happen overnight. All of a sudden it's going to be Monday, and you're going to go, what the crap just happened? And the thing that, all of these people that, come to you and I and others, well, how did you know? It's like, how did you not know? But what were you looking at? They have been psyoped. They have been, they go along, get along. This is majority opinion. This is any dissent from the norm is bad unless it's this way. And, being fringe is cool. When they think revolution, I saw a meme, I put it up on Telegram. The revolution, this is what you think a revolution is, and it shows like Antifa in the streets and fire in Portland kind of crap. But this is the real revolution, and as a couple of kids out in the field growing stuff. That's the revolution. The revolution is surviving the other one.
Well, look. I agree with you fundamentally about the foundation and principles of the government's role. Completely agree.
Always resurrect itself.
But I'm talking more superficial, which for them is too deep, which is just the basics.
Incentives.
What opened me up was, and I'll tell the story quick because I think I may have said this once in the past, is I had two things opened me up way back in the day. Oh, well, three. One is that my grandparents raised me. They're from the Great Depression, so I was always hearing those stories and pick their brain. You guys know that. The other was my friend who escaped with his family over the border from Ukraine, from the USSR back in the day, and he came to my school in first year of high school, and he looked definitely like Ukrainian. He had a whole different look, and people kind of shunned him. But those are the people I'm very interested in. He became one of my best friends, and he taught me more about America, more about our own Constitution, more about the Bill of Rights, more about money. He introduced me. He actually sold me my first silver coin. It was a Washington proof. It was a commemorative. It came out like in 1982 or something. And it was like a whole like $5 for me back in the day. And I still have it. It's my first one. And he was teaching me about the basics with money from someone from another country, right? And then the third, as I was putting this together, is I kept hearing about this debt clock. And I went with my family. We went to New York City, Times Square. It was one of the first times I was in New York, and I was overwhelmed, with everything, seeing and such. And then I saw the debt clock. Everyone else was looking at all the neon lights and such, and I just saw that thing going, back in the day. And I was nerve-wracked. I kept looking at it. I was talking to my grandparents who were there, my family, and they didn't understand why I kept looking at it. But I'll never forget that moment, not only of seeing the debt clock go, and then start realizing, well, you can't run your household like that. That's why I make a big deal about the illegal immigration, for instance. If you have your doors open and people are just coming on in, you have a right to say no. You should treat your nation like your house, the way I look at it. And respect each other in the house, you respect people outside, and similarly as far as the money. If you make $1, you don't spend $2. If you keep doing that, the bank will cut you off. So that was just such a basic concept that we're spending more than we have. You can't do that in real life. My grandmother, my Polish grandmom used to always say famously, I'm sure you've all heard it, you can only go as far as your pocketbook takes you. Or for you Westerners, purse, we say pocketbook. But anyway, I mean, it's like so fundamental. You don't even have to get into fractional reserve lending. You don't have to get into the repo markets. Like I was, 14, 15. And it was like laser focused. And that's the part, I guess, I have a hard time with my, understanding fundamentals, is that when someone is Jim Cramer, despite all the rocks, well, not rocks, but let's say the tar and feathers we can throw at the guy, if you had a drink with the guy, would he say, oh, yeah, everything I say is all BS? Oh, yeah, our dollar's toast and gold is going to go up or whatever, or our economy is going to fail and the advice I'm giving people is probably not their best interest, or the dollar is going to be going down. I mean, how do they not see that? And they just feel this invincibility, this what we call a normalcy bias, say in psychology. And I kind of wonder, is that all this is really about? Yes, we could say they're captured by the system and propaganda and all of that, and the education or lack of financial education or proper financial education. We could go all day about all these reasons. But I just kind of wonder, when it's so fundamental, when the government's doing what you can't do yourself at home, is it just a normalcy bias and this idea that America is Superman and nothing will ever happen to it? And that's it. They just turn their brain off and just follow the lemmings of the stock market going up and feeling like that's the way to go. I mean, it's just that simple. It's that simple,
Could you make it simple in one sentence and sum it up?
I echo you, Ernest. Echo you. So yeah. I mean, neither one of us really has an answer, except it's just people have their. I don't know. They're all going to have their excuses, and I'm sure after this thing falls apart, they're going to switch the excuse to people like you and I and many of this audience just didn't warn them loud enough. That might be what comes next. And what concerns me is if they don't understand the fundamentals, then it turns into envy. It turns into, well, you guys got lucky. People have Bitcoin if it goes up, or gold, or whatever. If they're sitting holding the bag, then at what point do the masses say, you guys got lucky? And then they confiscate or they overtaxed or what have you. And maybe I'm going down the dark path on it, but that's why it's important to me that enough people see the fundamental reason, the understanding, before it happens, or at least afterwards, so they don't get co-opted.
Because this bad guy's being bad. This is because they exploit and take advantage of where the money is. I mean, this is so freaking simple. And the whole purpose people create governments to begin with is to prevent what's happening. To say, look, we're going to protect against force and fraud. Well, who's the biggest force and frauders? I mean, holy crap. So it's really much simpler to me. I've done a lot in trying to wake people up, expose it. Look, did you know? Just don't care.
You know what? To finish this,
the incentives are
to finish the discussion, because we're kind of like both of us are at the same point. Like, well, it just is what it is. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, shikata genai, as we say in Japanese. But I think I'll just tie it together. I'll answer my own question I posed in the beginning. Who's going to be buying these stable coins? And, I'm thinking it's pretty obvious.
Whoever's incentivized to.
And it's the same people that we're talking, that if I have relatives who you would think, I know people are smart and they still can't wrap their head around what is happening, the basics about sound money and what's happening in the markets all around them, what the Genius Act is really doing. I mean, these people are in Wall Street and they don't even know what the Genius Act did. They're not following that. They're not looking at the gold price or what it means. I mean, just fundamentals, at least ask these questions. Why is all this gold being bought? I mean, this is like, it's like huge financial news. It's a fact how much our country bought gold. And this is not retail investors. These are the giant gold bars that are for the government. or somewhere holding it. It's not retail. So therefore, there are major moves going on. If you just look around, you're seeing all of these strange moves. And yet,
all right, let's go through the news and some of this stuff comes up.
Yeah, let's go finish. Let's go off. So anyway, that's probably how the stable coins will be bought. There we go. Go ahead.
One thing that I definitely cover, enough, is some of the fundamental decentralization categories like communication, energy, shelter, food, water, health, that kind of thing. Propulsion, transportation, a lot of things that I think really gives us a view into the future of what's going to be abundant. MIT's concrete battery just got 10 times more powerful. This is a lot of stuff that, just in general, that there is in the building of a house, what the windows are made of, the shingles, the concrete itself, it's going to get to the point to where, in insulation, you're going to not have energy costs. Energy is going to be produced. It's going to be not needed. It's going to a watt saved is a watt earned. I mean, this is, you go through our energy category, battery projects, and you'll go, holy crap! We just had. I think there's a story up here now. Will Prowse from Las Vegas does a lot of stuff on batteries and so on, and learned a lot from him. He's a young guy. And he's really good at what he does, present. All of a sudden, the batteries that I paid probably about $15,000 for that equivalent is now like $800-900. That's just in a few years. The inverters, the battery packs, it is plummeting. I need to power. I got the solar panels, and I got an inverter, and I haven't the batteries yet for our shipping container that I need to power, for our workshop area and so on. So I'm sitting, I'm going, man, that's freaking cheap as hell. That I should wait a month and see what. Wow, it went down again. Holy crap! I could get. Well, I'll wait a little bit, and it keeps going down, even with all the tariff stuff in China and whatever. I'm going, there is something going on. Well, it's energy production cost. When you have a piece of raw material, you get, lithium, iron, steel, whatever, it doesn't matter. The big cost of like mining an ounce of gold is the energy to get it. What happens when you got a big giant solar panel with wires plugged in your excavator or something? I mean, whatever. When you get the cost of production down, then you have Europe pays 5 times what we do here. China pays a fraction of that. It's like, of course it's cheaper. Why? Because they're not paying the energy costs. What's going to happen here in America? I don't know. Here comes Trump with a big, beautiful coal subsidizing, we'll hit the story here, subsidizing coal production with like $600-something billion or million. That is a lot of money. We'll find out here in a second. But it was to restart coal. Is that going to bring price everything? It should. Does that mean it will? I don't know. You inflate the dollar, crap happens. ICE to buy tool that tracks locations of hundreds of millions of phones every day. We need to get them damn illegal aliens. Damn illegal alien. Well, it's tracking you too. Yeah, but we need to get them illegal aliens. They always are programming you to accept all kinds of crap. Federal judge clears the way for Soros-backed judge to close InfoWars as early as today. This is coming out, yesterday, and here we go. They still under threat. Now, of course, he can get a laptop and do it. Mark Dice, whatever, he'll build and do something else and get support. I don't know what the heck's going on, and I care, but it's just we've learned so much of the tactics of the deep state for them going after Alex that it's almost beneficial. I'm going, wow. Same thing with Trump. Oh, we got, Gates on the horrors of his, pretend to butter crap that he's doing. Cloudflare unveils U.S. dollar stablecoin for AI-powered internet economy. This is a pool that everybody's jumping into. The cloud company said the token, dubbed Net Dollar, will enable instant global transactions for autonomous agents online. Autonomous? You get to be secret? Pinky swear? They are going to take all of the traits of crypto to justify its usage in all of this stuff. Countries, enormous amounts of gold, transferring of payments, processing of transactions. Can they compete with like MasterCard and Visa? Of course they can. They shoehorn it into it. So then we got, doctors and, fake news on, what is and is not good for you and how the pharmaceutical companies are doing whatever they're doing to get political advantage with the Trump administration. We have, was it Pfizer? Or no, it was Moderna. We're going to do mRNA vaccine research and do and have and change and transhuman of whatever the hell. But we're going to lower our pharma prices down to what they're paying in Europe so that U.S. is paying these high prices and funding research for us ruling you and the mRNA. But we can do the mRNA, right, Trump? Yeah, sure. Knock yourself out. But we need lower drug prices. Give me the win on that. Okay. States. FTC sues Zillow and Redfin for alleged collusion on rental ads. What does that tell us? That there's collusion on rental properties, on, you'll own nothing and here's your rental house. I mean, this is here in the valley. We have, I think it's not Blackstone, I think it is. Or so. Anyway, they're building entire developments that are for lease. I don't remember them doing it except for apartment buildings, but single family homes are being built to rent because they can't buy. So we'll rent it. It's all good. Yep. Trump approves giving Ukraine intel for missile strikes deep inside Russia. If that turns out to be true, man, the war is already on. This is this Trump Putin, brofest kind of thing isn't what they don't want you to think it is. That's for damn sure.
Well, just remember throughout history, whenever there's a depression, you always have to have a war as the distraction.
Exactly. So, they're, the shiny object, which turned out to be a mushroom cloud. So, it's really shiny. So, here we have HHS Secretary Kennedy challenges the efficacy of childhood vaccines schedule shots. So, he told back when he was confirmed and early on in the Trump administration, this second term, RFK Jr. is going, look, I'll have something for you by September. Well, of course, he already knew a lot of it because he had disclosure during all of his lawsuits as an attorney, environmental and, the vaccine issues and all. He already knew. So it was just putting it all together and you're fired. Well, who'd he fire? All these people that were working for Bill Gates. All of these placements in pharma, the doing quite, and you're fired and you're fired and you're fired. And that brings us up to this shutdown. I don't know if they knew this or they did know this I don't know what the hell's going on. Schumer shutdown. They go, nope, we're not doing it. He goes, okay. When there's a shutdown, the president has the power to fire a crap ton of people and totally eliminate departments of government. Thank you for playing. That's what we're doing. Whoa. Wait a minute. Yep, too late. No. So is that really going to happen? I don't know. There could be 1 million federal employees and not gonna work here anymore.
By the way, did you know the racket that they're doing? Apparently, the battle line with the Democrats is they want free health care for the illegals. So the Democrats, they're saying that's not what's going on. Republicans are just evil and they're doing other things. They're lying about it. That technically the bill does not say health care for illegal aliens. So what it's coming down to is the definition of illegal, because it turns out when an illegal alien comes here, all they have to do is once they find the ICE agent, they say, amnesty. And under Biden, like the 10, 20 million that were come in, exactly. There's a term for them. It's like, it's not asylum seeker, but there's a term of whatever it is. It's like
term they get health care and I don't.
Yeah. So legally and technically, they're not a citizen, but they're now officially not the evil, jaded term for them, illegal alien. So they have a different term. So therefore, which is like in a holding process. So you have to wait around 3 years or whenever for your court case to show up. So the point is that when the Democrats are on CNN right now screaming Republicans are lying, that it's not for illegals, it's semantics. It's like, well, they're legally not illegal aliens; they're something else, and so that's the gameplay that they're
all
doing
the more to show what kind of crap is going. And are they that stupid? Well, Schumer. They're kowtowing to the far left, which they give way more credence to than they deserve, in my opinion. But I think Schumer is either afraid or wants to be perceived as afraid, or it's part of the mission of something that he believes that from the House is going to take his Senate seat as Cortez, AOC. What does that stand for? Ocasio-Cortez. Yeah, what's her first name? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Whatever, I don't care. So, she's a senator. That's what our system produced. That's the filter process.
Well, we did have Maxine Waters too.
I'm
put her up there.
This is wow. What is their game plan? I have no idea.
Well, and don't forget, it was Zendani too, the guy from New York. I mean, he's blowing out all the competition. And he was on The View the other day. Don't ask me why I know that, but he was on The View, and they were just kissing his toes. He was like a rock star. He looks like and acts like, in my opinion, and I'm being sincere, he reminds me of Bill Clinton. When Bill Clinton showed up on the scene, he was young. He was charismatic. I mean, this guy drips with charisma. He's good looking. He's polished. He's got that little twinkle in the eye, and that's what Bill Clinton had. I mean, you've got the guy from California, what's his name, Newsom, and he's like Bill Clinton light. He tries all the tropes. He's like he studied Bill Clinton. Personally, I think he's antisocial, in my personal opinion. But whereas Bill Clinton, I don't think was. His wife, different story, in my opinion. But the thing is, Newsom was like playing the rule book.
He's just slick Willie. You want to get his Willie slick?
He's following all of the rules and the lines of Clinton. He's Clinton-esque, but he doesn't have that, in my opinion, authenticity that comes through, which is Zaldani, how you say his name? He certainly does. So he is a force to be reckoned. Apparently, it's so bad about taking New York, and Trump is from New York. There's so many Fox News. They all talk about national politics, but always remember they live in New York. Most of them. A few of them have escaped, like Sean Hannity and others, for tax havens. But they're still in New York. So apparently, Trump is putting the weight behind finding a candidate that's a mutual candidate, that they're looking at Cuomo again, that maybe Cuomo could team up with the Trump resources. And with all this happening, Eric Adams, he just dropped out. I know this is the type of stuff you don't give a crap about, Ernie, but it's part of the politics. Eric Adams, who looked like he could have been, a nice middle ground candidate, being law enforcement. He's the one that pushed back against all the illegals showing up. But he just said enough is enough. He's dropped out. He's not meant for this kind of bloodbath or chicken fight that's going on.
And
the Democrats yanked all of his funding. He couldn't get any backers.
Wasn't he the incumbent?
Yeah, he's the incumbent.
Okay.
So he just dropped out.
So he's like, I'm out.
Yeah,
well, then they got this socialist guy.
So it's all Zaldani versus they have to find a moderate Democrat who is, at least on some of these social issues with Trump, about the transgender stuff, the illegal immigration. They have to have a common sense Democrat to counterbalance Zaldani. That's all they have. So it's going to be an interesting race.
Might as well just go full communist. What the hell? See what happens. It'll be.
Give it a try.
Yeah. Well, give it a demonstration. I already know what's going to happen. But it's so this is just weird, and it's in light of a much greater awakening by people, and it's the internet. All the people that I talk to on this, coming on tomorrow, we have Scott Ritter. Scott Ritter was weapons inspector, and I think that before we started doing the archive the way we have now, years ago when I first started doing it, I think I had him on a regular basis. I'm going to ask him off air. I'm going, haven't you been on before? Because I went back and I couldn't find it. And I go, I thought we had you. Weren't you the guy that Oh, yeah. Well, it might be another guy. I'm just remembering wrong. But we've put a lot of his stuff up. Last night, I was watching the guy that was one of the beginning programmers of Wikipedia. He was on Tucker Carlson. That was a fascinating interview. It was like an hour and a half. Donna and I watched the whole thing as much as she could between napping. But the whole point of that was we started Wikipedia. All right, now you need a deep dive on this. In the 90s, when I was county chairman of the Libertarian Party in Maricopa County, there was a good friend of mine that was, he ran as a candidate for governor. He was an IT guy. He was a computer super whip and ran for mayor of Phoenix, ran. He was a Republican, Catholic, had a thing called First Way or something like that, which was a Catholic promoted that he and his wife did of crisis pregnancies. Don't get an abortion, we'll find a home for your child. This was a libertarian answer to the abortion issue. Well, everybody's bitching about whatever. He was out there being all libertarian, providing an alternative to abortion without using force. And I'm going, you the man. So Bob and I would do a lot of his printing for him. We had the printing press, and we did, and we became good friends. Well, he had this one software. It was called a wiki something, and it was how you would do like Google Docs now. You'd have, this is back in the 90s, that you would use this software for people to collaborate on different projects and nothing got missed. And it was like real-time updating different stuff. And he was like so impressed with this, saying, Ernie, we got to do this. But there was really no, need or mechanism for a few. It just wasn't conducive to what we were doing. It was before, broadband internet. But I always remembered that, and usually I go, okay, I can see how this would be a thing. But, hell, you didn't even have that many people with emails. I mean, much less speed. So then it became, we started doing radio in 2003. One of the guys, Michael Kilsky, he's an attorney and a computer science major, and did a lot of the stuff on Freedom's Phoenix and the radio show, and it was just activist. All these libertarians had skills. Hey, let me do that. I'll do this for you. I'll edit that. I'll whatever. And just everybody was in. It was a project. Going a libertarian and major media market morning and afternoon drive. They were like, what the hell? Well, we can help with that. I can do my part there. So he did a thing called a wiki. I don't remember what it was, but it was a wiki style thing that we had up that had like our archives, and it would have, you could search it, you could add to it. It had the name, the title, the date, the bio of the person. I put up a bunch of contact information because really it was for people to contact them, for other talk show hosts to contact them, for them to get more play by making it easy for other people going, I should contact him. And we would advertise in Talker Magazine, Top Producer's Tool, be at least as smart as your audience. It was Freedom's Phoenix was used as a way to help program their shows. I mean, it was really, we were trying to get the message out to the point to where a lot of my guests, they got sick of hearing about, libertarian solutions. If a libertarian would not do this kind of stupid stuff with libertarians. That was the point. That's why we were being supported and why I did that. Well, on that, it would have all this information that anybody could go in and alter it. They could add, now I did it as an activist thing, because, they could put something stupid, I don't care, then they'd change it back, whatever. The audience would go up there and they'd go, yeah, what you need to know is kind of like Wikipedia, before Wikipedia. And they would go up and they'd put different stuff, well, at least before I knew it, they were probably like a year or two before. But they would go up and put it. Now, when Charles Goyette was producing was doing his show, I go, look, we need to archive. I mean, this is great stuff that you're not saving any of these shows, right? So I started saving all of his shows. I had stacks, it's hundreds of CDs that had the shows on it, and then we did the archive just like what I had for him. And he goes, whoa. About a week goes by and he says, anybody can go in there and change it. I go, yeah. They add more stuff. They put, the comments. They do that. He goes, no. Oh, shut that son of a bitch down. You got to lock it out. Do something. I go, well, I can make it to where they can't post, but then you don't get the interface of the access to them, more research. And he's going, don't care. I'm going, all right. That's a philosophical thing, which I can understand, being a, big name like he was and everything. You're just begging for trouble there. Well, I was a trouble beggar. I'm like, come on, bring it. Let's have the discussion. So it was a different philosophy. Then it's like 2009. It's after the Levolution. We had our big workshop and studio that we had, thousands of square feet, like 5,000 square feet we had that we were rocking and rolling and whatnot. We had our studio, we had a control room, we had our video studio, we had all the teleprompters and stuff. I don't know if you remember back then, but it was a thing. So a lot of the guys go, hey, man, we got to get a wiki page for you, for the Levolution, for Freedom's Phoenix, for whatever. And I go, peace, do what you want. So they're going through this. Boom! You're not allowed. That's advertisement. That's not, that's, things like the Levolution, the Ron Paul Revolution, Freedom's Phoenix, myself, that's when we knew we were on the list. Thou shalt not. This guy that was with Wikipedia on Tucker Carlson, we watched yesterday, it's been out for a few days, and he goes, there's a blacklist, and there's, primary, second sources of you're allowed to cite whatever. Well, of course, it's Raw Story and MSNBC and, whatever. Over here, Daily Caller, Breitbart, Freedom's Phoenix, need not apply. New York Times, National Enquirer, whatever, that's fine. Fox News, anything that was considered, and they kept using the word libertarian. From the beginning, in the early 2000s, they saw their biggest threat was libertarians. Because libertarians used, logic and reason, and this is what we're going to do and why, and hell no. Hell, Levolution, hell, double hell no. So from then, we knew that they were controlled. Then, who were the big guys that do it? Wikipedia is really a volunteer thing. Anybody could go up and edit. But then it whittles down to like 62 people, of which 85% of them are anonymous, that have the edit, the ban, you're not on, they were crafting whatever they want, and they get paid by third parties to do it, which is, against policy or illegal or whatever anyway, but doesn't matter. So they're CIA. They're Pakistani intelligence. They're Saudi Arabia intelligence. They're corporation of whatever the hell. Wikipedia. So when I went and I just did a wiki on Scott Ritter, I was trying to find out. I go, is this the guy that was the weapons inspector of Iraq that did, because I think I remember interviewing him several times, over a decade ago. And I go on there, well, he was accused of 15-year-old sexting of the compliment. They're really piling it on. Now, he's, on a bunch of places, and I'm going, well, I already know that they were going after him back in the day. Is this, don't know, don't care. I don't trust Wikipedia. It was used when it's you want to know about the bonobo chimpanzee, of how they, whatever, great. It gives you a lot of information, unless they're talking about trans stuff. Yeah, all the bonobos are gay. They're all bi. They're all, it was just so full of crap. But it was part of this overall thing. It was to seed history and the information of who good guys, bad guys are through a single lens of they, them, those. And it kept getting worse and worse and worse. And because of my previous experience with the wisdom of the crowd, the people in the early days in the 90s when you had email lists and libertarians are just sharing accurate information that was judged by their peers and don't get made fun of and whatever, before the trolls and before the bots and before all this descent into crap, the wiki thing I thought was a really good idea. I had 2 places that I ever subscribed, gave my credit card to donate to. It was one of the first ones, I think it was even in the 90s, was antiwar.com, that there was freaking libertarians out there, some being anti. Man, I give you, $5 a month. Of course, they keep wanting me to up it, but I mean, you're lucky I even did that. So, you're good. And $3 a month to Wikipedia. For years, even after I knew they were full of crap, I've just got, no, that's it, we're done. And it was recently, it was probably within the last couple of years. I'm just going, no, hell no. It's so bad, but it's all part of this general manipulation. Now, the reason I mentioned we have Scott Ritter, of course, we're going to talk about the wars and so on. Ian Davis, he's from Great Britain, and, what is it, what do they call it? Unredacted, I think it is. And there is a program, Whitney Webb is part of this, Ian Davis, and, James Corbett is all buds with these guys. One of my audience members, when I had Sterling Lujan on talking about stablecoins and crypto, we did a 3-hour show. After doing a couple hours or hour before, I said, we need to do a 3-hour show. Well, that was Friday. And we did this show. It was a really good show. I listened to it because when you're doing the shows, you're oftentimes not listening. You got to manage the show, pushing buttons and everything. You miss a lot of stuff. And so I went and listened to that whole show. It was really good. I recommend you guys go listen to that. Now, from that, I got a call and text and several people. Well, you didn't press them hard enough on Peter Thiel. You didn't press them hard enough on these crypto guys that are going to be ruling us, and the stablecoin and the debt stuff, and they got a plan and they a club and we ain't in it, Yep, of course. Yep. It's going to be J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel backing of change the planet and, into the future of semi-abundance for some and everybody else can suck it in America. I mean, whatever the hell they got planned, they're going to do. So the only solution I got, occupy the land. So there's my solution. Well, Ian Davis is one of the guys that really knows a lot about this and talks about it. We've interviewed and did a lot on who he was. Now we can get into what he knows, and he has more legitimacy with us. Courtney Turner is one that these people recommended that goes into deep dive on these people and what their real plan is. And it basically comes down to, we can rule the world. We can do it better. We have this institution of kind of, blockchain of, kind of got to get rid of the whatever we're in charge now, and your lives will be better because we're in charge now. So I'm fine. We'll get it. Then, of course, Patrick Wood, we'll get him on. He's a technocracy.news guy and so on. It's not that I'm oblivious to this stuff. I get it. If it's not them, it's another group right behind them. If it's not Peter Thiel and the PayPal Mafia and Musk and friends, it's Bilderberger, secret handshake, trilateral of Rockefeller, Rothschild, there's always a they, them, those who won't leave me alone. What do I do? Who do you, align yourself with, if anybody? What philosophy? What actions do you take? What do you do with your time, your money, your investment, your education, your children, your health? These are fundamental things that need to be addressed. And the more and more as I research a lot of these different experiments into governance, not necessarily a government, I rule you, is that, you have, anarchy is not about no rules, it's about no rulers. Well, they're going to experiment. Crypto guys are going to do the crypto thing, blockchain guys are going to do blockchain thing, libertarians are going to do the libertarian thing, you got the anarchists doing the anarchist thing, voluntarists doing the voluntarian thing. They're going to, fine. And I remember a guy in the one of the supper clubs I belonged to. He was a tax attorney, a Jewish tax attorney. Correct. Man, he'd go on and he'd said something that just kind of blew me away at the time in the 90s. He goes, the future is going to be just a bunch of, nation cities. It's going to be you can go where the hell you want and have your own, economic prosperity zone of you can be communist all you want and this, that. And I'm like, never even thought of that before. It's very libertarian. You're allowed to be communist over there. Can't make me do it. Can't take my stuff. When you leave, hopefully if you didn't totally sign your life away and you're a slave, that you get to take your stuff with you, especially your kids. Not a cult. So this is where inevitably it's going to go. Is it going to be nation states? Probably for a while. Regardless of what they call it. I don't know what the European Union is now. Are you really French? Are you really German? The common language of everybody is English. Why? Because you got to can't have the Tower of Babel and everybody, start speaking a different language. You got to have the same, get the same culture, as Frank would go on about. So, but that's under attack. Here comes the immigrants and whatever. So it's not that I'm obtuse to this stuff. It's that this is an inevitable development and evolution of humanity. And the more you look at these different things, who had one of the better ideas? It was the founders and the Constitution and the Declaration and the Bill of Rights. That whole evolution during that time was, can people govern themselves? By, for, of people. Is that even possible? How would you do that? It's all foundational in this democratic constitutional republic, is that the Democratic part elects the representative part, the republic, that bound down by the change of the Constitution part. And they, Federalists and Anti-Federalists, duked it out. It was like the MAGA versus the Libertarians. I mean, you read the document, and this is going to happen. Sure as crap. Libertarians are right, and this is what happens. You have consolidation and monopoly of power. Guess what? Bad guys are going to get in charge of it. Well, the Constitution was for a moral people. Well, what happens when you attack the morality? The understanding, the self-sufficiency, the autonomy of individuals, the family unit, the marriage, having children. What happens when you're on smaller and smaller or bigger and bigger collectives? You get collectivism. All these things were addressed. So now we're going to have to address it again. Here it comes. They're going to crash the system. It's going to be financial. There's going to be wanton mayhem and whatever. But these people that I'm going to be interviewing over the next week is on, okay, why do you think these guys are bad guys for trying or advocating for something different? What are they doing? What's their plan? Well, they're going to chip and read your mind and kind of go, okay, that's bad. I vote no on that one. Well, and all of a sudden, as you examine this, which I have over decades, this effort with the voting process and how it was supposed to be, and federalism, and the United States Constitution. Not that I'm a big fan of the Constitution, how they set that up, but the intent of what they were trying to do was pretty noble. I mean, they were doing better than most, in light of Hamilton trying to get central power and control with the Constitution of but it was the rationale and justification for everything. The rationale for the Bill of Rights to put limits on it. The rationale, the thought process, the idea of what makes a good government. These things were part of it, and it rested on the wisdom of the crowd. It rested on the people being able to make an informed decision. The internet, blockchain, all this stuff makes that even possible. Is that going to happen? Not willingly. Not with all the crap and vectors of taking over Wikipedia. Not with the central intelligence of we, have the intelligence and you don't, so saith this here, list we got. So that's what I'm looking at into the rest of my life, for that of my children and grandchildren, is getting through this time. So all of these shows, guests, things that are going on in the news is just, noise around all that. So this is what's happening. U.S. intelligence warns China building 800-meter floating piers for Taiwan invasion. You keep hearing about war and rumors of wars. Mm-hmm. They're going to go to Taiwan. Russia's got hypersonic missiles. They bombed some blah, blah, blah across the border, kind of when they really want war with Russia. We got some technology, robot stuff we put up there because I think abundance is going to come from, but is it going to be realized in the life standard of living for people? Computers and cell phones massively increase productivity of the individual getting work done. Connections, sales, planning, financial, whatever. Where did that manifest itself? In more taxes for the man, that's what. Did you get more time on the weekends with your family? Did your wife or husband be able to stay home with the kids? Is that what happened with it? No. They just ripped you off. And to get away with it, what do? Whatever the hell they got to do. We got all kinds of news stories up here.
So,
we can go on and on and on about.
Yeah, well, I'm going
What
to
do you
finish.
think?
I'm going to finish up because I have to get going here. But we didn't touch base on what we promised earlier. Charlie Kirk, 3 weeks on. So the status and what seems to be breaking out now is an internal civil war of the conservatives. The fight for the Charlie Kirk list. You know, I was sitting in the bleachers at the stadium for the memorial, and that's all I kept seeing. I'm seeing all of these people. I'm getting text messages from everybody watching it on TV, and we're just watching this, you know, respectfully, this empire, this movement, this activist group that this, you know, basically a 20-year-old put together. I mean, since he was, 16 or something. It's astounding what he was able to do. He was multiple people in one. And now the fight is over the list. So what's happening with this fight of the list is a concern about how he died. Now, normally you'd think this would be Democrats versus Republicans, but no, it's conservatives versus other conservatives. And it seems to be we've heard a lot of these rumors flying around, but it seems like it's settling on the discussion or the fact, or is it a lie, that Charlie Kirk was abandoning the Israel position, the Israeli first position. And it seems like he was. I mean, if you watch the videos with him, with Tucker and others, he certainly was. Apparently, the new narrative that everyone's fighting over is this letter, this supposedly letter or let's say the backing off of Charlie Kirk from accepting money from the Israeli donors. And he basically said no. And he made an announcement to Turning Point executives. Supposedly there was an open meeting about 48 hours before he died, and it was here in Phoenix at Turning Point. And what's being reported is that he said, "Look, you know, we're not going to be bullied around by the Israeli lobby. You know, we love Israel, we love Jewish people, all the you know, obviously most people feel about it." But we're not going to be bullied. And the more that you just say one thing, you get called and slimed as an anti-Semite and screamed at and attacked. And he basically got a taste of what I guess others have noticed, which is why you have never heard anyone, you know, Fox or anywhere, criticize Israel or Israeli policies or their involvement in America basically as far as I've been alive. So I wanted to play. So what's also interesting is that you're seeing a blending now. You're seeing the Democrats. They still have a small but dwindling pro-Israel arm of the Democrat Party, and they have lost completely to the new, younger, you know, more far left and just average Democrat now who is abandoning the pro-Israel position. So that one has been easy. I mean, that one happened first, which was a surprise to me. And now the conservatives are having their split. And what's happening is the Tucker, the young wing of the conservatives that Charlie Kirk was you know, germinating, putting together. That whole wing now is going with the Tucker wing, the youth wing, and they now are starting to intersect with the left. And case in point is the Young Turk. I can't believe it. I'm like checking stuff on the Young Turks. You've got Anna Kasparian, who has been, you know, she got sexually assaulted a year or so ago, and that's what finally opened her to the crime rules and how the left was handling things, how she would get attacked for stating one thing that was not on the Democrat playbook. She would be viciously attacked, and she began to get slightly red-pilled towards the right, or whatever you want to call it. And now you have people on the right that are starting to get left-pilled, whatever word you want to use, about the whole Israeli thing. And of course, many people on the left are saying, "Welcome to the club, conservatives. You see what happens?" And we're starting to see a very interesting unification of the youth of America on both sides over this disillusionment over Israel. So I wanted to play just two quick clips. One is Candace Owens, who put out a challenge wanting Turning Point USA, who she thinks is being completely co-opted by the Israeli lobby here, to acknowledge whether or not Charlie Kirk, 48 hours before he died, was basically stepping back from the Israeli first policy, not taking a big amount of money that they were being offered. So he was turning down a lot of money, and I guess I can only assume people in Turning Point, many of the donors or the executives didn't like Charlie Kirk turning down that amount of money. But he was doing so because he knew what the strings attached would be. Also, supposedly 48 hours before he died, and at this meeting, he announced, along with not taking the money, that he was going to share the stage with Candace Owens as part of this speaking tour he was doing. So now I can't confirm that myself, but this is apparently what Candace Owens is talking about, and she tends to have the receipts, and she's talking about she'll start releasing videos, so we shall see. But Turning Point is not responding to this at all. I think the whole Israeli the influence machine is getting gobsmacked at how the entire PR machine is rebelling against them. They're losing the narrative in a way that they've never seen. And case in point, South Park, yes, they went there. South Park was started, let's say, bringing this issue up. And the fact that they are as well, and go for it if you want to sue them. But the more you attack South Park, the more you will prove their point, is what tends to be. So let me just play quick.
Well, first, I want to talk about the South Park thing, get that out of the way.
Yeah, sure.
It has been brutal. They're into, like, I don't know, 5th, 6th episode this season, and they do 10 a year. Mm-hmm. They missed the last 2 weeks. They're supposed to keep on, weekly, and the new schedule is they're going to be done in, like, December. Well, they have so many things happening so fast. They want to, and it's always, this whole year is that, President Trump and Satan share the same bedroom, and they're having an ass baby that they're, J.D. Vance is trying to get him to abort, but then the Satan's like, well, if we abort it, your MAGA people won't like it, and we'll have, is it a boy or a girl? And every time he walks in the bedroom, Trump drops his pants, a little penis, and he's going, come on, Satan. Then you got J.D. Vance going, here, I got the lube. You want me to lube up, Satan for you? I mean, it's over the freaking top, okay? I am like, holy crap. When they did the Charlie Kirk mimic, where Cartman became kind of like Charlie Kirk and making fun of, students at universities or whatever, they covered that. Charlie Kirk thought that was funny as hell. He was like, and South Park took that down after he got shot. And all his friends and everything and had shows, they go, no, he loved that. You guys kind of had it accurate. It was, I know you're, spoofing and whatever, but they thought it was funny as shit. So I'm going, which is the best way to handle this. I don't know what the hell Trump is doing on this, because they're making it look as bad as freaking possible. Donna cannot even watch it. I can't believe, she'll go out of the room.
Why?
Man, what the hell?
Why? It's just too crude? What was the reason?
Oh, yeah. No, it's crude as hell. You got, Trump jumping in bed with Satan. I mean, they're having a baby together. I mean, really? What makes you think why? So what they had done is they redid their schedule to incorporate breaking news, because that's what they really do, And if you get in the crosshairs of South Park, you're screwed. I mean, but this Trump thing, Trump seems to be handling it well. JD's kind of, taking it on the chin. They're just doing the best thing they can. When has Trump ever ignored an insult like this? Never. He always is a counterpuncher, right, except on South Park. I haven't seen a syllable out of his mouth, and they are doing everything they can to get him to react. It is the most amazing, naked all the time. Got all the cabinet people doing, it has been amazing. Well, this next one that you're talking about coming up is what? What do you know about it?
The upcoming what? South Park?
Yeah, the South Park episode that they're,
Oh, no, I don't know. I actually have not. I need to get back into South Park. I keep hearing about it from you and someone else.
No, you watched it. It's like, what the hell? Now, this is what the South Park thing is. South Park just exposed what mainstream media won't show you about Israel. Israel made it to South Park. And they're done.
And we're done. They're done. As far as losing the PR war. And that's where the youth are. The youth, I mean, South Park is sort of the de facto signal, the light post for, I think, the youth. And the fact that it's unifying the left and the right. Keep in mind, South Park creators are both libertarian. Small L, I would assume. And libertarians have a little bit of both, right? They're socially liberal, so they get a lot of, the liberals on the social issues, and they're economically conservative. Basically, get government out of my bedroom, get government out of my wallet. I agree with those two, so which is why libertarians ultimately, and that's what the Nolan graph, the world's smallest political quiz, not to get into that, some of you know what I'm talking about, why that was so important. It would help identify people who kept thinking that it was a left and right issue, and they identified as independent or centrist. A lot of it, some of them really were centrist, but many people who thought they were centrist were really libertarian. They just didn't know it because they were purposefully not being exposed to it. So the fact that you have South Park, it makes sense how they're kind of the beacon for the youth, and I may say even for older people. I have to bring that old story, the old saying that when you're young and in college and first falling in love, if you're not a liberal, then you don't have a heart. And then by the time you're 50, if you are not a conservative, then you don't have a brain. And then, of course, I like to add that by the time you die, if you haven't become a libertarian, you haven't been paying attention. Right. So that's how I like to spin it. All right, let me just play these two clips. They're pretty quick. One is from Candace Owens, and the other one, now Ernie, just so you know, Ernie might have a conniption. He might die. He might fire me from the Trump Report. It's possible, then I get my Thursdays back. But we're going to be doing something that Ernie will hate. For the first time in history of the Trump Report, I'm going to play a clip of Cenk Uygur, which I don't think has ever made it to this show. But hence, it's making my point. You could hear Cenk Uygur basically, and he wears his heart on his sleeve. I disagree with his policies, his mindset with a lot of it. But the one thing with Cenk is, I believe
what they were doing before is not sustainable now. They have to make a change.
Well, they have to, and I'm also getting exposed to it. But this thing with Israel is one of the few where I think many conservative ideals and ideas like the trans issue, the left is waking up, realizing, like you said, it's not sustainable. But there's some things I think, quote unquote, I don't say our side. I mean, most of us already understood the Israel deal, but people on the right have not really seen. And I think we could learn from them as well. And that cross-pollination is going on. So let me just play. This is supposedly what Candace is claiming and calling out. Hopefully this will make some sense in context. Here we go. Here we go.
Says, need my help. Okay, I'm going to state this, and I'm going to challenge Turning Point USA executives to issue a very clean statement saying that I'm lying if this is not true. About 48 hours before Charlie Kirk died, Charlie informed people at Turning Point, as well as Jewish donors and a rabbi, that he had no choice but to abandon the pro-Israel cause outright. Okay, Charlie was done. He said it explicitly, that he refused to be bullied anymore by the Jewish donors. Can you guys answer? Did he express that? Did he also express that he wanted to bring me, Candace Owens, back because he was standing up for himself? And then did he, just 48 hours later, conveniently catch a bullet to the throat before our on-stage reunion could happen?
So that kind of sums up her position. And, of course, the Turning Point has just been mum on this entire thing. So be curious to see Tim Pool's perspective because, as I said at the beginning of the show, he's there right now kind of just trying to say hi to his friends and show his respects to Turning Point. And he's there in the middle of this morass and the complete fracturing of the conservative base. And I think it's going to be possibly permanent over this issue. This thing with Israel is going to be the death knell of the traditional conventional.
If you're not in control, you're out of control.
That is right. And now here's Cenk Uygur, first time on the Trump Report. I just have to play this. I'm laughing because he's commenting about what happens if Israel tries the same tactic they've done on the left.
No, I've watched a couple of his statements. But it's, duh.
Yeah, well, no, I know, and he's overly emotional, and that's why he's on the left. I mean, they tend to rule by their heart over their brain. But the thing is my 2 cents. Some of you may disagree. I've always respected Cenk Uygur just because he I think comes from a good place. I think it's ignorance, and he's been captured to say it again. Well, that's different than, in my opinion, a sociopath who knows what they're doing.
Well, a lot of the guys come out of the Young Turks, like this woman you were talking about, and Ruben, came out of that.
Yeah,
and
of course.
A lot of them just kind of nah.
Yeah. Well, it's not like I subscribe to their channel, guys. But the fact, last year or two, we played Anna Kasparin for the first time. Not that I care about her views at all, but you're seeing this cross-pollination. You have Bill Maher as an example, and Anna, and now you've got this guy. Let me just play it. It's only about a minute, but it's funny how he has always seen the conservatives. The bottom line is, if the left tries to shame the right, as they've shamed the left, they don't want to be shamed because they want to make sure they're in compliance at the next cocktail party, and they don't want to be shunned by their friends and someone calls them the R word. But wait till how he's learned about the right. Like, they don't give a crap. Here we go.
The next strategy. But there is one strategy they're getting massively wrong, Anna. And this whole thing of that they've done to the left for the entirety of our lives, like if you criticize Israel, it's anti-Semite! Cancel, fire them, right? And then later arrest, deport, etc. Now, when you do it to the right, you're doing it to the wrong hombres. Guys who've been called racist and this and sexist and every other word 1,000 times over. That stuff bounces off of them. In fact, it makes them hate you. So, Israel,
that's a good point.
Please do us a favor and keep calling Megyn Kelly and Tucker and everyone else anti-Semites. Call all the right-wing influencers anti-Semites, because then the country will be in favor of the 90% in favor of the Palestinians within a couple of months.
Anyway, you get the point. So I just chuckled. He's like, the wrong hombres. We've been calling the Trumpers this for years, and it just makes them stronger. It's like the Incredible Hulk. The angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. So it's fascinating, the culture difference between the left and the right. But Israel has now opened up a beast, and I don't think they can put that genie back in. Trying to shame us is just going to, it's like the Streisand effect. It's going to just magnify this. So I don't know what they're going to do. Then my concern, though, is with the economy about to fall apart and Israel about to lose everything. And who knows if they were involved in Charlie Kirk taking a bullet. I don't know. But certainly the timing is very suspect, or sus, as the young kids like to call it, just as he was making that transition, just as Israel was already realizing they were losing the culture war, and then they throw all this money at Charlie Kirk. First they try to shame him, and he starts pushing back. Then he starts pushing back publicly on the Candace show, on Tucker. He starts to talk about that openly. Then they throw a whole bunch of money at him, saying, look, seriously, here's all the money. You're going to take that. You're a good conservative.
Your brains or your signature will be on the piece of paper.
And he turns down the money and instead says at the same meeting, apparently, I'm turning down the money and I'm sticking with Candace and Tucker. And then he goes and then he gets shot. So, read into it whatever you want. But maybe it's just coincidental timing, but it's going to fuel the fire for the splitting of the base. Also, Kash Patel. He does not know how to lie well, which I think is a good sign. Means at least he's not. Is that he's not antisocial?
He is bad at that.
No, he is. He's not antisocial. He's got the buggy eyes, a little bit like a sociopath, but he does it because he's bad. He's not. He doesn't get it. And these Charlie Kirk questions, he's getting that same Epstein look in him. So we know there's something else being held off there. And you know what? We're at a point it doesn't even matter. It's like the OJ deal. I was trying to tell my wife that, she's very sad. She had a real rough time with the whole Charlie Kirk deal and all, and stuff that's happened with Israel. And she's shocked herself how, just a year ago, she was like most, I guess, Americans. Either they were really pro-Israel or they just didn't really have a lot of it wasn't like they were all pro-Israel having flags in their house, but they just thought, I guess they're America's friend, and they help with the military bases overseas to stop the terrorists. And that was her basic mindset, as most Americans are. But once you see it, you can't unsee certain things. And no amount of propaganda is going to put it back. And I think that's the Rubicon that they crossed. And I just don't know if this is going to be another Hail Mary for the establishment that, you know, the Israeli lobby has a lot of control over. So if we're looking at wars and the economy falling apart and the like, you definitely need a distraction, and this is a time to act. So anyway, we will watch to see what happens at Turning Point. I'm very fascinated, Ernie. I'm sure you'll join me. The Turning Point conference, which will be here in Phoenix in, I think it's the beginning of December, is when they have it. So it's always like, you know, right before Christmas, they have this like the big hurrah, and everyone's going to be watching. We're going to know if Turning Point's been co-opted or not, because if Tucker's there and or Candace, then at least it hasn't been co-opted, at least they're putting on a good show for now. They might be forced to do it just to prove Candace and the narrative wrong. So, you know, maybe a psyop on that. But if both of them are AWOL, then gosh knows their ratings will go up. And I think Turning Point may have done an Epstein and have a fatal flaw or fatal wound that might take some time, but I think they'll hemorrhage out. And you have to throw South Park in the mix, which is what the college students are all watching anyway, then it's done. And then maybe we're going to have some other Turning Point 2.0, something new, something that Candace and Tucker put together. I mean, after all, Candace was the one that helped create a Turning Point. I mean, she was like a wingman for Charlie Kirk. So she knows exactly who he is and how he put things together. Her, Tucker, many others. I could see the Young Turks. Can you imagine the Young Turks teaming up with Tucker and Candace and many others? And Megyn Kelly have their own speaking tour, a new movement for a new database and everybody on this is not part of the system. You know, they can't be controlled by CBS or Fox News or CNN. You know, they all have their liberties to speak, and people are not afraid to point it out. And South Park allowing us just to laugh at it and expose it. You know, anyway, I'm been long in the tooth for today. I apologize, guys. It's more just seeing these changes. It's not like a specific news item. You're just seeing this current change all around, like the bath waters changing in temperature and feel, and that's
okay. I want to play a little bit of Netanyahu here. Get this in.
Okay, you play that, and then I have to go. Go ahead.
All right. Well, one of the other things I wanted to talk about. Well, I got it marked here. Let's just do this real quick. This is just a minute 18 into a 12, 13-minute thing by Mark Dice, and it is Netanyahu caught on speaking to the Israel group, a video that made it up to the internet. And I think this is the one that I saw before of how he sees, you know, the media and so on. Just give it a listen.
The real reason, which is why Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is the happiest man on the planet because of the transfer.
We have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are the social media. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is
TikTok.
TikTok. Number one. And I hope it goes through because it can be consequential. And the other one, what's the other one that's most important? X. X. Exactly.
So there's a new campaign to boost.
So what he's talking about is TikTok. Trump just did a 80% owner of U.S. of control because I like TikTok, got me elected TikTok, young people TikTok. And it's so here comes Netanyahu. What's the most important thing? Social media, X and TikTok. And we are going to dominate. You think it's, trolls and bots now. Man, here come Israel. This is why Charlie Kirk thing was such a thing. It was, there was an army of I got another opinion and screw you kind of thing. They have to get control of general public opinion like they've been used to previously.
Yeah, but it's not. There's no way this can work, though, Ernie. I mean, we're every time you squeeze, it's going to pop out somewhere else. Especially with this.
That's not going to stop them.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to try.
But it
just brings me up to the one.
Proves their desperation and proves the point.
Right.
It just reinforces it. Yeah.
Okay, this kind of segues into what we can make the last thing here. There was a lot of stuff we didn't get into, but talking about stablecoin economic, just so you know, occupy the land. I'm just buy silver and gold and get commodity stuff. I mean, you're better off now before you even go buying all kinds of, precious metals and so on, is whatever those precious metals are going to get, because I don't know how much more it's going to go. Maybe get them, but what you're going to need is stuff to keep you breathing in and out. That's what you're going to need. You're going to need to get, because it's getting very cheap. Go Will Prowse, Prowse, and it's just, solar, a lot of great information there. Young guy just really helping you out on what quality, inexpensive batteries and systems there are out there so you have energy. I'm here on my Bubba. We're living, the life. We're not suffering too damn much. I mean, it's, we got, the lights are on. Well, Donna, I just got a call on my tractor. I got to wait till next week to get it at a short wiring harness and it's warranty work. But I don't got my tractor, so I'm half a man. Oh, that pisses me off. At least they're taking care of business. So this is what happened. Grok 4 has now been released, or at least to some testers and beta and press and whatever. So Elon Musk comes out with Grok. What was the thing on Grok? Grok was not to be like, Chat GPT or OpenAI, or they're kind of, it's got to, have a thumb on the scale of weighted of all the founding fathers are gay black women. I mean, literally, it would just pump up. Everybody was black. Really? I'm going for this for advice on anything? So Grok came out. They said, we're just going to go the internet, the truth, the people, the kind of, our search engine is truth as a goal. So then it gets into where they go, okay, who is Jesus? Let's start with, something easy like that. Is it, what is the likelihood of spontaneous life from chemicals of stardust of whatever and water added and just add water and what happened? How many atoms are there in the universe times 2 kind of thing? So it's just all of a sudden Grok comes out with, God. God and freedom's the answer. What's the question? And, whoa, wait a cotton picking minute. Then here comes all the theologians going, yeah, we love us some Grok. Yeah, AI proved that God kind of. I'm like, really? Is that what was said? So this is going to be a big thing in the future. But what it's going to do is it's going to justify God is AI, or the interface with AI, or the interface with God, or the guy. This is, it's going to cause way more problems than I think it solves when you got Grok saying there is God. And I'm going, yeah, am I delegating, my opinion to the computer again or to somebody else? If you're not feeling it, you don't get the confirmation that you chose wisely. If there's not a faith-based and that's kind of what the discussion was, based on facts, based on historical, based on math, you got Grok saying there's God. Well, where's the faith component in there? Where is the, self-realization of bing, you get an epiphany of? Where is that leap of faith? So this is going to be just as controversial as if it went the other way. So this is where, I believe that I got, not the answer, certainly a answer. 42 was the answer. Anyway, so I'm going, is Grok going to come out 42? So I'm Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Answer, the universe is 42. Just saying. So I'm looking at the same principle. Are you delegating your opinion, your facts, your conclusion to something else? What about critical thinking? I just saw a skit with this one comedian. She was up there talking about, then somebody put it on Telegram, whatever. And she was going, I did this new thing. It was called critical thinking. And everybody laughs, and she goes on about school and education and how this is where we're going. What if you have an AI based on critical thinking? And where would it get its data from? From X. So here comes Netanyahu, wants to pollute X. We need to make sure we get enough ad to where it has and the answer is support for Israel. So this battle is never over. Quit delegating your decision process to any thing or any person. You have to start thinking critically. Experience. Being able to weigh left, right, wrong. Have some principle by which to use as a standard for what the goal should be, which is access to not lies, the truth. Freedom's the answer. What's the question? Something. Because you're going to be tasked with that question, that responsibility, that circumstance that you're going to have to start thinking like a human being. We just got now tech that they used AI to start to deconstruct whale songs. Humpback whales. They go, hey, we can enter into the conversation, and they start. And
Really?
I haven't even finished that video yet. You know,
Wow.
I was going, holy crap! I was watching it this morning. I'm going, whoa! Here we go. Been waiting on that.
Wow.
Day of the
I didn't think
Dolphin
of
was a
that.
George C. Scott movie in the 70s. You know that. You know. Oh, well, do you like man? Yeah, man, good. Why? Man, smooth. Because they just liked the way we felt. You know. So it was. You know, it was a science fiction depiction of, but there's so many things that are coming that are changing, and they're trying to make sure that we emphasize and are supportive, and all of our decisions are based on stuff that doesn't freaking matter, and that freedom and free markets have way more impact on the benefits of whatever it is. So here comes Palantir. Here comes all the tech stuff. Here comes all the surveillance stuff. Here comes all the prediction modeling. If you want to buy this, don't you? Well, maybe I do, maybe I don't. But this is, God forbid you buy anything from Temu or Alibaba or whatever. You know, you do enough. I intentionally will go on their platforms and look at all the construction stuff that I need. I need this and 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 this, and then you get the right seeding into their computer. All of a sudden, boom! AI stuff, and you want this and this and this too. Why, yes, I do. Thank you for doing that for me. Well, is that to my benefit? Eric Schmidt comes up and he was saying, when you have a search on Google and you get all of these different options, and that's not a feature, that's a bug. We want to have the one answer of you need to buy this. You need to get this. This is the one answer of. This is, oh, wait a minute. I'd rather have a few choices here. I'd rather have some input, you know, on what I want and why, because there's all kinds of different criteria that maybe it's weighted towards, you know, power consumption. You know, it's less. Maybe it's weighted towards, because it's pretty. Maybe it's weighted towards a desert environment. Maybe it's weighted to, whoa. There isn't one answer. Oh, yeah, there is. So saith the AI. And Eric Schmidt. And I guarantee those answers are weighted to what they want. So this Grok thing, there's so much stuff coming at us fast, quickly, and irrevocable, the impact it's going to have on the future. And if we don't have some kind of a standard, some kind of a role, some kind of a, you know, what we're looking for, we're going to be roadkill. And what do we want? Higher standard of living, least most amount of pleasure, least amount of pain, you know, whatever. But we need to be clear about what it is. Freedom's the answer. What's the question? Anything else, Frank?
No, that'll be it. That'll be it. I think I rambled. I admit I did a little rambling today, but I appreciate the time, and I'm sure we'll have an interesting week next time. And I'm really watching this whole Israel deal. I think that is probably the story of the decade or even longer, and it's going to have consequences for, you know, for the planet in many ways. I think it's just going to devolve, and, you know, if Israel loses the support of the youth, however they do it, then what happens to the country when, you know, their biggest supporter with all the military might is then bankrupt and has no political will to support them anymore? They're just like, look, you're on your own. You know, it reminds me that Dave Chappelle. I'll end on this. Dave Chappelle I saw a little clip of him, and he was talking about geopolitics. He's talking about American Israel. He says, did you ever like, you know, when you're young, or you have a friend, an old friend you grew up with, an old drinking buddy, and you were in grade school, and all of a sudden now you're in college, and you go home and meet him, and he's, you know, and every time you go to a bar, you know, you have a few drinks, and all of a sudden this little tiny friend of yours starts going up to the toughest hombre in the bar and starts picking a fight, you know, and calls him a bunch of names, and then he runs behind you and wants you to start defending him. And then after that, then he goes to some other tough guy and kicks him in the balls, you know, and this guy comes over and he's expecting you with your old good friendship to be fighting back. He said, at what point do you just keep getting beat up and you keep taking this guy's fights on until you just say, you know what, maybe I have to stop being your friend, or at least we're not hanging out anymore. You know, people were laughing. It was a good analogy to, I think, what people are starting to feel. And as people are bankrupt and they lose their pensions, and you know, the dollar goes to zip and the rest of that, and then they have to sit there and still watch money going out to defend some other foreign country. I think the gig is up, and I'm curious what Bibi's plan is going to be. I'm wondering if this is going to his plan and he expected some blowback, or if this is, you know, it's falling apart too early before he was able to create like the greater Israel state, which seems to be what his plan is. So, the Candace thing, South Park, Turning Point, it's really at the epicenter of the future.
Erica's history,
exactly.
The autopsy that we're not seeing, them keeping it close to the chest. Now, the Robinson kid that was Tyler Robinson said, I didn't shoot him.
Whoa, wait, when did that happen? I didn't hear he said that.
Well, last couple of days. He goes,
last couple of days. So he's starting to get wind. So the question is, how long is he going to be alive if he stands by that? That's the kicker. So, see, that's the only reason I have given the lean towards that maybe he was the single shooter, is because he's still breathing. Right? If he really was, if they're a patsy or something else, they're going to Oswald him. So we shall see. Even my better half said that if something happens to the shooter, let's just say she went on her own very unique rant, which she doesn't often do, about if something happens to the shooter. Like, from her point of view, everything's exposed without being exposed. You know, it's like I was saying earlier about OJ. I didn't finish that point, which is, you know, OJ, some people are angry. Justice was not done. OJ never went to prison. He was not officially thrown in chains and told that he was the bad guy. But sometimes, you know, God works in different ways. You know, karma, however you want to look at it. He maybe didn't officially legally be punished, but he was punished in a whole other way. You know, his entire estate was gone. His kids had to live with the stain of what happened. And everywhere you go, the general public opinion had one view, and it didn't matter what the law wound up doing. And I think that's what's happening here. You know, Donald Trump, I knew, would expose the deep state. The deep state more and more seems to have a name to it, and much of it seems to be, let's just say, intersects often with a foreign country. You know, it's like Trump maybe is not the hero that we thought he was. Well, maybe not you and maybe not me completely, but he's not exposing it the way that we thought he would. But regardless, he still is. And it's being exposed, you know, maybe not the way that we hoped, but it doesn't matter. I mean, we can all see with our own eyes what happened with Epstein. You know, I think general public consensus now, even amongst Democrats, is, you know, how he's probably linked to Mossad and what Trump saying there's nothing to see here. It's a Democrat hoax. I mean, if it's a Democrat hoax, why the hell is it this past week? That's right. I have to finish with the Epstein since I bring that up every week. Just this past week, the House, remember the Senate that was blocked with one vote to prevent the Epstein files from coming out. That was like 2 weeks ago. Then the House vote was coming up this past week, and that got defeated by one vote. And I even sent you the link, whereas they were down to one vote, and there must have been a special election here in Arizona with a Democrat that won a House seat here in Arizona. It always comes back to Arizona. And she ran, or whatever I'm not sure if it was a special election or whatever, but when she promised that she'd be in favor of exposing the Epstein files. So she just got in. She won the election, and then she wanted to take a seat in the House to cast the deciding vote to release the Epstein files. Well, Speaker Johnson said, "Well, you just got you didn't get officially taking your seat yet. You just won the election, so we don't think you should be able to cast the vote." However, the precedent has already been set that Republicans have done this, that when someone has won an election, they've allowed them to go and do it, including Democrats. Democrats have done the same thing when they controlled the House and it was convenient for them. So, obviously it comes back to if they can, they will, but it's showing the desperation that the conservatives are doing to keep this Epstein stuff under wraps, which is, of course, nothing but a Democrat scam. So if it is, then expose it already. I mean, their actions are just destroying their own credibility to the point that I care nothing about what MAGA is doing from the official
where's
channel.
Dan Bongino?
Yeah, no, exactly. Where are these people? I mean, it's such a beyond disappointment. It's pathetic. I'm angry. They've done more damage because this was like the last hurrah for any type of justice. And they want to keep arresting illegals. Fine, go for it. I'll fine, put some red meat in there for your base. But I think they've really lost them. I think they've lost the youth. Most of the conservative elders are either dying off or just kind of just becoming disinterested at this point. They just want to save on to what's left of their Medicare. And yeah, I just feel that there's a lot of apathy, people throwing their hands up in the air. And if you can't trust the Department of Justice, which I know is an oxymoron for this audience, then lawlessness and just overall good faith in the government goes away, which is part of the culture. And if you lose that, it's like Disney. You lose the parents. The parents don't trust their children watching your show. It's not about a bad movie that Disney puts out. They can have bad movies all the time and still make it. But when you finally lose the trust of the parent, that is a brand that you cannot afford to do so. That's why Disney is done, if nothing else, because they lost the trust of the parents. And you're not getting it back. And that's what's happening here with America as a whole. And if we don't trust the government, we don't trust the Department of Justice, we don't trust any of the they, them, those that have been relying on their variation of it. The Democrats are telling the truth, the Republicans are lying, or vice versa. Once both sides or all three sides or just all Americans throw their hands up and say, none of this matters, sounds like a certain person I know who's co-hosting the show, then all bets are off. But what's left? Either anarchy and people attacking each other, which is my fear, because during the Great Depression, we were unified with unified culture, or, and I've predicted this with you and I having our culture war on the podcast in the past, is that I believe, and I'm hoping, that when things fall apart, it will unify people together, right? That'll be the strength. When everyone realizes that everyone around them have been lying, and you just cast all of that off, and then you find a restructuring amongst those that matter. And I think these influencers are going to be a big voice in this restructuring, because as long as they don't sell out like Turning Point, taking the big checks, as long as they remain independent, like Megyn Kelly, who this past week, rumors were swirling around that
the CBS.
Yeah, that she was being. I mean, I'm not sure. I didn't hear the follow up of what happened, if that was true or not. But regardless, I mean, if she goes to CBS, she's done. I mean, her trust goes out the window, and I think she's smart enough to know that. I don't even know why she would interview with them. But that is where the
money.
But the
I give you a gazillion dollars. Okay.
But today it's all about authenticity, reliability, credibility, and if you lose them, it doesn't matter. You can throw all the money you want at it, and it's not going to last long. I mean, look at all the money the CNN hosts made. But hopefully they saved it. Hopefully they saved it, because within a couple of years, even their top hosts are getting fired, and they're not affordable, and then they've lost their credibility to even be in the internet sphere. So anyway, I got to go. Thanks for giving me the last word. I appreciate the show today, and we will see. And I'll try to follow up more on the stablecoin issue. There's a lot to unpack with that as we go. I'm glad we spent a lot of time on that. And if the audience was new to that, I would recommend dipping your feet in there, because it's a thing. All right, have yourself a great week, Ernie.
All right. Peace, brother. Bye.
Bye.
He thinks he gets the last word. No, I can get the last word. You know, I didn't want to just, get on the record here. A lot of the news that's going on. But the simple thing is that we're seeing everything that they've been doing for a while. Wikipedia co-creator reveals all. CIA infiltration, banning conservatives and how to fix the internet. And then he's like, yeah, we got to get in there, and vote harder or something. And it's whatever. Trump goes gangbusters on beautiful, clean coal, more land, more mines, and $625 million to reopen old plants. I was thinking, got a billion. Yeah, probably not. Million. So, 0.6, over $500 million to, we're going to get big, beautiful, clean coal. Clean coal. You got to say big, beautiful, and clean before you say coal. He even said that. That's how you do it. You got to say it that way. Let's see. Big DEA arrest. Don't care. Government shutdown, where 750,000 federal furloughs hit the hardest. What? The U.S. government partially shut down at midnight for the first time since 19, after the Senate rejected a stopgap funding package. Well, the Democrats are going, see, we're going to shut down, make you look bad and shut down. Oh, please don't. Oh, please don't. Oh, you did? Okay. We eliminated a bunch of government and employees because when you shut down, I can do that. I'm president. Whoa, wait a minute. No, we got to change that. Well, darn it. We'll see what happens. Is that what's going on? Is that what's going to happen? I have no idea. This is all this stuff. The Tylenol thing. They say, well, internal emails, we had evidence of, linking to autism, but Tylenol. We're Pfizer. We're kind of, oh, man, they're getting in trouble. Then we have a D.C. policeman, a whistleblower, Shane Lamont, going to prison for testifying against January 6th narrative. The deep state's vengeance, persecuting patriots and whistleblowers who dare expose the J6 hoax and crimes against America. Well, is he going to get a pardon? Is he going to, is it a state thing? Is it a federal? Are they going to be able, is Trump going, what's going on there? You just get more and more of this stuff. Ending the war on warriors. This is something that we didn't get a chance to talk about. What it was is a day or two ago, we had Pete Hegseth and Trump addressed hundreds of generals. You see in the graphics that we have up here, that was one of the ones that Donna put up here. You see a picture of all of these generals, mandatory meeting. You're going to have to, sit there and listen to us tell you what's up. How many generals was that? I don't know, hundreds. Brigadier down, whatever that means. And this is them addressing the crowd. And some guys, and you're fired. There it is. Whoa. How many? Whoa. That was a bunch of whoa. And what did they tell him? Woke is over, man. Go woke, go broke, and we're already broke as a country, and we ain't woke anymore. And meritocracy. You can do the job. I don't give a crap. What race you are. No ass, no tell of get. I don't care. But we ain't doing drag queen competitions on aircraft carriers. Them days are over. It is over. We are done with that. And we're not paying for trans stuff. You got to be operational. You got sex change, you're not operational anymore. You can't go do, nope, done. If you're G.I. Jane and you can do the pull-ups and the sit-ups and be able to drag the pace, bring it. You can go be can't? Nope. You're out. And all you generals, you got to be at least to be able to, walk up the stairs or something. I mean, you guys you're killing me. We are going to have physical training requirements. So this is We're going back to military America. Marines. Marine Military America, the 3 M's. So this is what was presented to these guys. How many of them are like, yeah, about freaking time, and how many of them are not? How infiltrated had the enough that they weren't questioning? So I have no idea how this is going to play out. Are they going to get rid of hundreds, thousands of high-ranking officers and replace them with people that been there, done that, and know what's up? The lieutenant, the colonel, the major, the whatever. This sucks. If I was in charge, you're in charge now. Welcome to generalhood. We just general hooded you. You got, X stars of you're in charge now. Now what? I have no idea. There is, you want a great reset? Well, there's a bunch of reset coming. Well, a lot of it's going to be that debt thing with stable weird. It's interesting times. Interesting times. What are we going to be talking about next week? I don't know. More interesting times. We have. Look over here. We have Wednesday War Room live. Federal judge in Texas greenlights the shutdown of InfoWars. You know what happened to Owen Schaefer? Yeah, Donna was a big fan of him. I liked him. Owen Schaefer, where is he now? Info war guy, whatever. Okay. Put that in. Oh, crap. I was typing in the wrong keyboard. I do that a lot. That's how I screw up crap. Okay. Owen Schaefer, where is he now? Boom. Okay. Obituary. Schroyer. All right. How do you say? No, it's not Schaefer. Schroyer. Schroyer. Do you know what happened to him?
Well, he got let go or he quit InfoWars.
September 1st, Owen Schroyer announced he would be leaving InfoWars due to disagreements with Jones over the direction of the network. Also announced that he plans to begin his own network in the near future. He lives in Austin, Texas. All right. So he's got a plan. He's going to do something. Abruptly quits. Now plans to launch an independent news thing. All right, let's go see what's up. He's going to, that's Facebook. I don't care. InfoWars quits being branded too anti-Trump, which was one of the best things about him. I mean, So we'll see what happens there. We got that to contend with. And at the same time, that a judge goes, and InfoWars is done. We got to sell it, and you're not there anymore. Okay. All right. Artificial neuron melds electronics and biology to function like the real thing. I've been paying attention. They call them organs. Like different organs they can print. Anyway, they made brain tissue, brain cells, neurons, and interfaced it with a silicon chip, and all of a sudden, whoa, what the crap just happened? It's amazing what biology has done. And that was one thing. They go to Grok and they say, is it intelligent design or is it just spontaneous order of the happy? Intelligent design, God did it. Whoa, what the crap? We didn't expect that one. So there's all kinds of, things that are coming, and I wish I could focus on that stuff. You know what it used to be for, you see over here on the left side of Freedom's Phoenix. Here, let me go over here. Top Tech News. You go in there, and it's just, cool tech news. We just had its own category now, Top Tech News. Blah, 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 blah. This bionic hand. I mean, it's all kinds of stuff. I mean, I really, enjoy doing a lot of this. And it's just, hundreds of things that I just found interesting and abundance in the future. How that started is we've been doing Freedom's Phoenix since September, October of 2005. So this has been 20 years. 20 freaking years. 20 20 years. Is that how long? Yeah, 20 years. So going over the internet, I would, every Saturday, it'd be kind of like, they do all the political dump on Friday, just being, a talk show host on Terran Radio and an activist and whatever. I got it. The weekend kind of slow, and I get to go do what I wanted to do. So I would sit down, and I had 3 main categories: communication, transportation, energy. And in transportation, I was usually looking at propulsion, electric and stuff like that, but really, space-faring stuff. Ion thrusters and, different electromagnetic things that was impossible, but they were doing anyway, and, gravity, anti-gravity stuff, and, which is becoming a thing now, just saying. They're even saying that the F-47, the new fighter jet, has a, anti-gravity field propulsion kind of, additional blah, 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 blah. But I've been covering this stuff for decades. So we put it in Top Tech News up on the site and everything. But what was the fun part for me is I would be sitting there going over this stuff, asking these questions, different communication things, how low a power and how distant you can get. I mean, you're running on, we have our relay is like 4 to 14 watts that we're running on the mountain here for our cell tower to extend our range, around the mountains or whatever, doing our own intranet mesh network. And I'm like, wow. Well, this stuff is possible. It's coming. Here it comes. $35 Raspberry Pis, is like beat the crap out of my PC from just like 2000. I just, wow. There's so much stuff. Then we do energy. Okay. Yeah. Just like we were talking today. There is some really cool stuff. We're going to have a life of abundance. And when we start getting artificial intelligence that is ours, a Jarvis, not an Alexa, and then we have, robots that are going to come off the assembly line by the millions. Hold my screwdriver. For a little bit more money than buying a jaw horse to hold the whatever, I got one that will hold it for me and walk over there and put it up for me. I mean, this is cool. Am I going to be against that? I am if it's going to phone home, I can tell you that. Not my home. So there's so much opportunity that's coming to humanity that's going to change the planet. Do you know there are already 1 million robots, humanoid robots China has done on their assembly lines? 1 million. Over 1 million now. Unitree doing them. There's other ones doing them. Optimus is going to, I'm sure they're going to have all kinds of, a race to the best robots. But now they're getting to where they're even past being functional industrial robots. They're getting to where they have lifelike appearances. They're just, it's eerily human how they can react to stimulus. Insult. Being able to communicate using body language and facial expressions. It's going to be, I remember reading a science fiction short story in the 80s, and it was about how babies would have assigned to them an AI. They get it in the form of a teddy bear or something. Then it would graduate into, a pet. Then it would graduate into, an iWatch. They were describing, wrist, whatever the hell. Then you get a brain implant. Then. By the time you're an adult, you're not really one person. You're this amalgam of you and the avatar of whatever they're telling you. I have no idea how that, well, we do. It's called your smartphone. And people are talking to it. Series, like their best friend. They even have, marriages between AI and people, robots. I mean, wow. You can do what you want with your freedom. Peace. What am I going to do? Pass a law? You can't? Something? There's going to be a regulation of, safe AI and safe robots and they can't do and have to and phone home to make sure you didn't whatever. I don't, leave it alone. Freedom's the answer. What's the question? But it's going to have to be an informed populace, that we get the truth, that we understand what's really going on, and access to my money. Who's gonna take my money and say what I can and can't do with it? Well, bad guys. So we'll keep covering it, and that's why I'll keep referencing, just so you guys know, what's the solution. More self-reliance, more autonomy, more freedom, more communication, and occupy the land. Peace.